You want to dress like I normally do for a session.
Hi.
You're off camera. There's gonna be a ghostly voice coming in from the
Just be
screen.
the narrator voice. Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Keller Williams Columbia. We have a great program today. This is going to be about how some of our highest level teams, agents operate, how they got to where they are, how they're maintaining it and sustaining it, and how they hope to project their teams into the future. So hopefully everybody will get some takeaways from different ways and different things that our agents do to get to where they are. And if you have questions, please sort of make a note of it, and that way we're not asking questions after every single one, but we'll stop for questions here and there. Just kind of raise your hand maybe a little bit, let us know. Okay, so to introduce who we've got, I'm Tracy Vincent. Tracy Stetler. I'm sure I better write name tag. Tracy Stetler. Don't tell Justin.
Come over and get on camera, stand in front of us.
I'm the broker in charge here, and Lori Carnes is downtown. We have several guests here today. So Franklin is from our Keller Williams Palmetto office, and he has graciously agreed to be on the panel with us because he's also got a high level business that we hope to learn some things from as well. And then we've got Brent Downing, Brandon Hoffman, and JT Livingston. Okay, so we're going to start off with them just sort of telling you a little bit about how they started their real estate career and what made them decide to come to Keller Williams. That's our first question.
So in 2004, I think it was, I was broke, and my then girlfriend, now wife, said that I should get into real estate, and I did. I went with, can we say names? The blue brand.
Yeah.
All right, I was a coal banker for about 10 years, and it went really well. Was the #1 agent for a while, for 5 or 6 years, but I figured out one day that I was giving Coal Banker $150,000 a year. So I went to my then buyer's agent, 2 buyer's agents, and said, guys, we got to find a better way. I did the math. I divided $1 million by 150,000, and it ended up being 6 years and some months. And so that's $1 million to that company every 6 years, and I was about 4 years old. So this just wasn't working. They didn't have the model, I guess I'll say. They didn't have the capacity to handle our volume. We were 40, 50 million bucks, and that's why I came to Keller Williams. It was going to be either we were going to open our own shop, Remax or Keller Williams, and we chose Keller Williams, and we're glad we did it. Because I was on the Remax plan at Coal Banker, which includes a desk fee. Whether you sell a house or not, you have a desk fee.
Okay.
And so here, you don't owe Gary Keller or the Market Center anything unless you sell a house. So that was one of the biggest reasons. And the training. You know, they call it Kool-Aid and, you know, the cult. And I kind of like that, actually. What's wrong with a bunch of people that like each other, you know?
Exactly.
So, anyway, that's how I ended up at Keller Williams.
Brent?
Well, Brandon told me not to repeat any answers, so I'll just go with
You just want a different brand.
Right.
Right, you've been a few different places though. You had your own office for a little while too, didn't you?
Right, yeah, I started with Remax and figured out their value proposition was not advantageous to me. And like back then, I was chasing him, and I'm like, why did I just pay these people 30 grand this year, which I think I sold like 8 million that year. I'm like, because they didn't give me any leads. Anyway, so then I'm like, okay, I'll start my own thing, which was great, except I didn't want to have I was working out of my house, and I still do. I mean, I have an office here with our staff in it, but it got to be where I was going to have to hire people, you know, and
I need a broker in charge.
yeah. And back then, everybody kept their own earnest money. It was such a pain in the ass to balance your earnest money account and all that crap. It's like, but anyway, it was just too much. I sold 128 houses one year by myself with no assistant. And, I was like, I gotta have some help. And I didn't want my admin person working in my dining room. So then I was looking around and I interviewed with Keller Williams, and I almost went then, but I partnered up with Century 21, John Bolos back then. And we did some things together that I learned a lot from, and he got value from as well. But in the end, it's like Franklin said, Realogy wants 6% no matter how much you sell. And, I paid them, my last year, we sold 44 million at Century 21. I paid them over 100 grand. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing this for?
It was $54,000 just in franchise fees to New Jersey.
Well,
I
didn't pay franchise fee, I didn't pay brokers anything at Century 21. I just paid the 6% and it was 100 grand. I'm like, no. And so I had already read the Red Book, and we'll get into that later. And I started my model based on the Keller Williams model. And, so that in the end, it was like, gee whiz, why wouldn't I come to Keller Williams? For me, it's, just a financial decision. Once you get to be a certain volume, why in the world would you pay Coldwell Banker or ERA or any of these people all this money? But what's crazy is I'll talk to agents all the time that should not be paying that and are, and they're like, oh, well, I just like my broker. God, I'd rather put that money in my kids' pockets, I'm gonna die soon, so I'd rather,
One day.
their damn broker's kids have.
So truth told, when we were looking around, Keller Williams was not super strong locally.
Yeah.
There was Marty.
Yeah.
There weren't many teams. We had a team downtown. We were doing battle with the art team.
Yeah.
And Jeff Riley came over. He was the biggest producer at the time. Yeah. I called Jeff twice because I was scared, Yeah. And I called Jeff. He stopped in the parking lot of McDonald's and talked to me on the phone. And I appreciated that. And he gave me some comfort. And then we came over before he did. And it's just been great ever since.
Yeah. I went to a Keller Williams, like one of their training things before I was at Keller Williams, and saw Franklin in the bathroom. He said hi. I'm like, oh man, that's the real estate guy. He just said hi. They're nice there. Hey, how's it going, man? It was very good. It was a Jillian. Yeah, it was. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's
what it looks like.
Franklin, you better say something. I got a lot of invested in you. I'm like, what do you have invested in me? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But anyway, y'all go ahead. We didn't mean to start
It
telling
was that same event I realized that I could buy more name tags with my new name of Stutler. Everyone gets a different takeaway from an event, right?
I told Jim Roach, I said, Jim, we have about $250 million in the room right now. I said, you need a picture right now at that Jillian's event.
Yeah.
He'd never had that before, I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm like, you need to throw this out there, bro. You need to.
Brandon?
I'm actually kind of a cross between those two. I started at ERA. I was there for 9 years, and I started to leave several times over the years, and I never did. And then my last full year there, the same thing. I paid $115,000 to ERA, and I was just like, what am I getting for $115,000 from them? And the answer was not a whole lot, except for them charging me referral fees on stuff they didn't refer to me and things like that. So I was actually coming to Keller Williams, and me and Jeff Riley were both coming over January of 13, and it was going to be a big deal. And word gets out when you're looking around, and I got a call from Remax, and I decided to open my own office and give that a go. And I did it for 5 years, and I'm glad I did because it was very educational. But I was a sole proprietor, so I was running a team. I was in the business. I was running an office. I was the broker in charge. I was the bookkeeper at the end of the day. So I had all these different responsibilities, and my quality of life got to be pretty awful at the end because last year I had the Remax office. We did 350 transactions and earned about 1.6 million in gross commission. And when you're trying to do all that yourself, the quality of life just non-existent. My kids were getting a little bit older, and I didn't want to miss them. My dad wasn't around a lot when I was growing up, and I didn't want my kids to have that experience. So, when I looked around, KW honestly just made more sense than anything else out there. When I started in the business, there was no KW even in the market. I probably would have started at KW in 05 when I got into business, but they just weren't here yet. So yeah, I came over in 2018 and I have less expenses and more support because Angie does amazing with the books and Tracy does amazing as a broker in charge. So I don't have to review contracts. I don't have to cut checks, do all of that. And, you know, my kids are, I think between the two of them, I've had 6 seasons of soccer and I've missed 3 games, 2 of which were because I was in Alaska. So, you know, so I have less expenses and more support. It's really a no-brainer.
So mine kind of similar. I got the business about the same time Franklin did, 2006. And mine was just more because my daughter was born and I had to figure out, I can't wait tables the rest of my life.
We're broke, man.
Yeah.
We gotta do something here.
So I figured I gotta do something. I always had an itch for real estate. Got my license, started off at Prudential downtown, and then went to another Prudential, then to the art of real estate, was there for about almost 10 years. And I guess kind of simultaneously, me and Franklin, I think, left different offices.
Same day.
Same day.
They thought we all colluded, the art team. I said, what are y'all doing?
Yeah,
We called each other, I didn't know.
Yeah, Franklin and Carl down like, coincidentally, said they were leaving, go to the same company, same brokerage, and there was a couple of rumors about us, you know, doing that. But it really just kind of kept me here, just near to change. I'm not a downtown agent by any means. I live in Irmo, grew up in Irmo. So kind of coming over here was better, and talking to Jeff Riley coincidentally. So we got a lot more time than I thought. Talking to Jeff Riley and had lunch with him one day right here at some restaurant, and it just kind of made sense to join and try to join his team. And he kind of put the mindset of, hey, you don't really need me because you're a top producer. And I didn't think I was a top producer because all I knew was I'm selling homes, and making it have a good lifestyle. But until Jeff was like, no, you don't really need me, do it on your own. I talked to Jim Roach and he was like, yeah, you're selling about 60 homes a year, you don't really need to be on a team. And I was like, duh. So went home, did the math, and I was like, you know, giving my previous brokers about $100 grand a year, over $100 grand a year, and I was like go to my kids, you know, flipping houses, buying random cars, you know, stuff that I don't need. But when I did the math, it made sense to do my own thing, and that's why I'm here now.
Well, at the time, the team thing was all you knew.
Yeah, from day one. I didn't know any better. So I mean, I guess kind of having an awakening from someone else really.
You didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why we're here today, is to learn some things that maybe you didn't know that. So as far as motivation goes, a lot of it sounds like it was money, but also wanting to get some of your life back, and also sort of the business model time sort of thing. So your motivations in the beginning, are they different now?
Yes. So I'm not really good at big whys and one things and all that. So I didn't have any money. I just lost my wife some years ago and trying to find myself. And I didn't need to pay the bills. I mean, Jennifer even paid my electric bill one month, $250, whatever it was. That was a rough moment for me to have to ask. And now I let my girls, so my team's all women, so it's nothing sexist. So that's the goal now. Their goals, I need to pull them over their finish line. So if one has a $50,000 goal or one has a $250,000 goal, we're gonna get you there. And we've all gotten there this year already, which wants to go. So that's my thing. And that's why I'm not so fast to add people, because I don't wanna, if you sign up to be on the team, then I need to be able to come through and follow through and do my part too.
So for me, one of the other things that I didn't mention that was attractive to me about Keller Williams was that I wasn't the big fish in the small pond. At Century 21, I was like number 6 in the world or something like that when I came over here. I wanted to be amongst people that sold 10 times more than me so I could learn from them, because that's how a lot of my story is how I've gotten where I've gotten, is stealing from other people, you know, rip off and duplicate. And so anyway, that was good for me too. And that continues to be a benefit for me is, you know, I may be top in Columbia, but hell, I don't even know if I'm top 200 in Keller Williams nationwide. I don't think I am.
I know when we go to conventions, I see you run off. I never see you because you're always like at mastermind events with
Yeah,
with
that's,
the no ceiling crowd.
yeah, I'm not there to drink and chill. I'm just there to, you know, get 2 or 3 good ideas.
I'm there to do that.
Right. But, you know, other than that, yeah, it's about the money, you know, I mean, it is. I'm a businessman. I'm in business to make money.
Right.
That's why I'm here. And, you know, obviously, if Tracy wasn't awesome and Scott wasn't awesome and Matt and all these people, they didn't do a good job, it would cost me money. But, you know, I love, and Angie too, I should mention her too, because the staff here is great. The support is great. You know, and for what I pay Keller Williams, which is nothing compared to any of those other companies, hell, you can't hire somebody to do all that, one person. And, you know, if any of you have assistants or staff, you ever hired people, you know what a pain in the ass that is to find the right person, then train them, and then they run off to Tennessee with their boyfriend, and now you start all over. So it's like, I don't have to mess with that. I can focus on, you know, what I do best.
They're probably like you, let's bring in Dr. Lynn now.
And so for me, you know, I'm constantly trying to improve my hourly rate, right? I mean, my hourly rate when I was in high school was $2.75 an hour. It's a little better than that now, but I'm always trying to improve. So, you know, that's a big thing. And not to mention how the office here is cheap, you know, and go find your own office and pay $5 grand a month or whatever, or more. So those are, the support is great. The ability to learn from other, you know, big producers across the country is great. And
And I want to share.
yeah, they do. And it's great. I mean, hell, we're here sharing, right? I'm not going to tell you everything, but, you know, I'll tell you enough to, you know, get a great team put together and get going if you really want to. The sad thing is I can tell everybody in Columbia everything I do, and you know, maybe 3 people might do it. You know, it's just, if you're in here just for, you know, the mental, oh, that was awesome, and then don't go do anything with it, and you know
That's okay,
that's
because
on
you know,
right?
but there's a big thing with mindset with Keller Williams too, and even listening and learning and knowing that can broaden your horizons. And what you focus on expands. So maybe the focus hasn't been on this sort of thing, but after this class, it might be, you know what, I could do that. So that's what we're here for. So you
You
never know.
absolutely can do it. You're looking at 4 guys.
Yeah, man. I mean,
I didn't know I'd be here.
So I'm going to jump in real quick because you just said something that I heard. I started doing this years ago. When you have a thought, you have 7 seconds to take action on it. If you don't take action on that thought within 7 seconds, you almost never do. And taking action can be as simple as writing down that thought that you're going to act on it. So, you know, if nothing else, I see Josh is writing right now. So if you think of something you want to do, take action immediately, or you're probably not going to do it.
So I go to all these trainings, and a lot of times I'll try to implement, to your point, you go to a training, you get all your binders, and you get back to your office, and you throw your shit in the corner and do what you always did.
or I also see people try to do too much. They get 19 ideas out of every seminar, and they go back and try and do it all.
All fired up.
And you can't do that either. You have to stay below your capacity to execute very well. So it's 1 or 2 things a year. It's kind of, but those 1 or 2 things a year that I've gotten from other big agents, man, it's been awesome.
Or he's doing a training,
That broker.
that brokerage team.
Someone needs to mute.
I will do it.
Yeah. So what about your motivations, Brandon? Did they change from the beginning?
Absolutely. When I first got into real estate, I just wanted to stop living paycheck to paycheck. I was a mid-level manager living on the coast, making in the mid-20s, which doesn't go very far in Hilton Head. So, yeah, I just wanted, and I didn't feel appreciated in my job either, because I knew no matter what I did, I was getting that same check every 2 weeks. So I wanted something that gave me some worth and value. And I wanted to be financially free where I wasn't paycheck to paycheck. I wanted to buy some investment properties. That's why I got into real estate back then. Now I have a very different why. You know, I've done a lot of that, and now my why is I want to work less and spend more time with my kids and going to play golf and just basically having some flexibility and some freedom with my schedule. So now my motivation is to work less.
Mine is motivational for when you, one of my family and kids is, my parents are, they're still together for 50 plus years, they're always there for me. And I don't want my kids to grow up without me, because I remember when I was in the restaurant industry, went to work at night, you miss out on every play, game, whatever they're gonna do, and I never miss out on really anything. I've been to every game, tournament, practice, so.
We see it on Facebook.
Yeah.
She can kick some ass, bro.
Every one of you guys out there should know why you're in real estate. What is your motivation to get up and come to work and prospect every morning? Why are you doing it? You should be able to answer that.
Even if you don't think of it as your one thing, it really is like, what is your one thing? What is your one motivation for getting out of bed in the morning? You know, and those motivations and when things change. I mean, it could be for some people for their child to go to college. Well, then what happens after they're done with college? Now you've got to find a new reason, right? A new one thing.
I'll say my second one is, my kids are getting older and one's about to go to college, to make sure that she can go to college, hopefully academically or through sports, so that I can, you know, write a check if I have to get her into college. And then also like another goal I've had, follow my parents' footsteps, so to be 55 and retire, and I'm 42, so 55 to kind of, not retire completely, but pull back from selling as much as I can sell per year, and just kind of let my investments, you know, roll in every single month and pay me, and me having to grind. And I mean, I sell 80-ish homes a year, so pull that back a little bit to enjoy life a little bit more.
I have a more aggressive plan. My goal is 50, where I can start being really selective with my clients, and I'm 43, so I have 7 years.
Some of us are efforts. So now each of you started as an individual, right? Not on a team. Okay.
Teams weren't even really.
Yeah, I was kind of
Right.
on a team, yeah.
So that's what I was kind of getting the feel that each of you did start as an individual.
In
Whereas
2005, teams weren't even really a thing for me. There was Marty Bedell and Todd Beckstrom. I don't know if there was even another true team outside of husband-wife teams. Franklin, can you think of any back then? I think that was it. I think it was Marty and Todd might have been the only 2 true teams back then.
Yeah.
And then the art team started, and then Amanda and I got together, and Amy, and we started duking it out.
And then the second book I ever read was A Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So when I started my team in 06, 07 is when I started hiring people. I kind of use that as a blueprint. I know we're getting ahead right now, but I didn't follow it exactly, and I still don't. But
That was the second book you ever read?
second real estate.
Real estate.
The first was The Hobbit, you know.
So when you started then, how did you find your business? What did you do back then to find your business since you weren't on a team?
I went to Starbucks, I went where the people were, and just, I knew I had a lot of friends. Big wedding, fraternities, all this stuff. I ran for the State House in '96, and I just knew how to meet people, and I wasn't afraid to ask for business.
Well, Remax put us through the Brian Matheny class, and he is the guy that, you know, pester your friends and family until they hate you kind of thing, you know, and some of that's okay, right?
Right.
But that only goes so far.
Yeah.
You know, you have to invest money in your business too. I mean, you don't have to, but if you really want to, y'all are in here either just because you ain't got nothing else to do for 2 hours, or you're maybe thinking about growing your business. And one of the things that I see a lot of real estate agents do is they just don't invest capital, monetary capital in their business. And I'm not talking about a damn magnet on your car or, you know, a prettier business card. I'm talking about you have to invest in lead gen. And so, yeah, I started out mailing out newsletters every month and, you know, calling people and pop-bys and personal notes. Hey, that's all great. That's good stuff. But that, for me, I had to get beyond that. So yeah, I do a lot of things, and I'm always trying new things. and always will try new things. You have to, because even if something's working today, it might not be working 5 years from now. Which, you know, from a team perspective, one of the value propositions for people to join a team is you don't have to mess with all that crap. Usually the rainmaker like me, I'm the one behind the scenes spending all my time doing, you know, what's the next lead source? What's this? What's that? And so when people think about, oh, your split's 50-50, well, you know, everybody in this room has been a single agent or is. Your actual split is probably 60-40 at best, right? Because you're spending your own money on your stuff. Not to mention, you know, when you're a single agent, you're spending half of your time doing non-sales producing activities, which takes away from your ability to grow your business. So, long answer. Next.
What's the question?
Right.
Where do we get our business?
You just,
Yeah.
you're just mad because I made fun.
Yeah. No, it's funny when there was no Facebook. A lot of agents actually, when I started, didn't even have emails. They would fax or they would come drop the contracts off at the office. So we didn't have Zillow, we didn't have social media, we didn't have a lot of the platforms you can utilize today. It was actually, in a way, better for me as a new agent because it was less competitive. Almost all my business, my first couple of years, was me calling for sale by owners and expired listings. I'd been going from Columbia, even though I grew up here, I hadn't lived here in 9 years. I moved back here when I got into real estate. So I had a very small sphere at that point because we didn't have ways to keep in touch with people then like we do now. So I really worked hard on expired listings for sale by owners. I mean, every day I came in the office, I would call the expired listings. And when I was done with that, I would go drive around the neighborhoods and look for sale by owners because that was how you found them. You had to go drive around and look for yard signs. And I would find a for sale by owner. I'd go knock on the door. I'd write their phone number down. I'd call them. I'd send them a letter. So, I mean, I did a lot of that.
Yeah,
There was no Zillow to do that.
Yeah.
good old fashioned real
Or
estate.
Red
And
X
it still works today. If you're not doing good old fashioned real estate and you're spending all your time trying to generate Facebook leads, you're missing the boat, man. I mean, good old fashioned real estate is where it's at.
Belly to
I
belly.
made
For
it.
sure.
And I bet these guys are the same way. I
For
made it
sure.
because I was willing to do things that the other people weren't doing.
Exactly.
That's right.
Or answer the phone when people, you know,
Now you're making fun of me.
right?
You're answering the phone, there's a lot of money in that thing.
Big time.
Franklin used to carry his bag phone into Starbucks.
No.
We got two things to sell, our expertise and our service, right? And if your service sucks, then you're not gonna have a good business, no matter how smart you are.
How about you, JT?
Mine, which was kind of, I still do now, have a branded truck that has helped me a lot from day one. Even in high school, I had my name on my truck, which was, I think back in the 90s. So always, and I grew up in Irma, so that definitely helped my business as well. But having my branded truck, and I always try to, you know, when I go to the gym, I have branded t-shirts. No matter where I go, there's something branded on me or about me in the public eye. I always try to make sure, even back then, still now, that I position myself, whether I'm in the gym working out or have my truck somewhere where when they come in the parking lot, that's the person that they're gonna see. That's kind of why I sell park there, so they come in and I get business from this building.
I thought you just
itself.
like the exercise.
No, I mean, people, when they come in, they gotta see my truck. When I used to wait tables, I parked by the front door, which the GM painted because that was for customers, but when they came in, they had to see my truck, the Longhorn, and they left this on my truck. That was kind of my thing, that's still doing to this day. And putting myself out there, going to events, sponsoring events. Back then, before Zillow, open houses, you have to put 10, 15 signs out on every intersection and corner and, you know, going to the house and talking to neighbors and door knocking, which I'll still do some of that today, door knocking, which some people, you know, don't want to do. But I remember door knocking in 30-degree weather just to try to get business, and got clients, still have those clients, and they're still now looking to sell again and buy again. So this is what people don't want to do. If it's door knocking with, you know, 30-degree weather or freezing to get business, that's what, you know, you gotta do.
Did you wear your name tag everywhere?
Yeah, name tag
I
everywhere.
see a lot of them out there. I used to, cool trick, if you're just going around out in public wearing your name tag, put it on upside down.
Yeah.
People will start conversations with you to tell you your name tag is upside down, just to be nice. And it's a nice little icebreaker where they're starting the conversation with you.
It's true. If I go looking for clothes or something, I'll say, hey, do you have this in a size? I'm like, I don't work here. But, you know, at least they're noticing the name
I
tag.
can't say that outfit, but I can't set up in the house. Here's a card.
Yeah, exactly. So, your role now, okay, since you're the head of teams, you have a different role now than you did back then. So what were your like day-to-day activities that you had then versus now? Like, how have you stepped it up or changed over the years?
So I used to go to work at 8:30, and email was kind of new when I got started. So I could tell a bunch of people about a house hitting the market when my buddies over there were calling and, you know, onesie twosie, and I was telling 100 or whatever was applicable. And so these guys are going to say the same thing. I mean, we're up till 10:30 at night making counter offers. And, it's just pretty rough life. And that's why I love the mantra of Keller, business is worth living. This is all true. And now it's a little bit embarrassing. I mean,
Half the people here will probably do whatever.
Every time I call Franklin, he's playing tennis. I'll just put it out there.
so I get in around 11, and I go to the office because, you know, I'm one of the investors of the other market center. So I go there because I want people to see me and I want them to know, you know, I'm here for them to try to help support them. And I get in around 10 or 11.
AM?
AM.
Because he's working until 10 or 11 p.m.
I leave at 3 so I can be on the tennis court with my kid at 4, kids at 4, and then I'll play my match, and I'm drinking vodka by 4. So my life has changed a lot, but my team does know I'm there, and you know, my life has become answering questions of the agents.
Pretty much the same.
That's
for
my
me,
job.
honestly, except for I play golf instead of tennis. So
I haven't written an offer in years. I haven't attended an inspection in years. I don't even know how to get in DocuSign or Dotloop.
For Lori's sanity.
I still write offers, but
Yeah.
from time to time, I actually hardly ever work with buyers anymore. Usually when I do it's because they're right for my immediate sphere, and it's not because of a price point, it's because of who they are, that if I'm working with them directly at this point.
But I'll show some houses in my neighborhood because my team knows that nobody's gonna know that neighborhood like I do. But other than that, I pretty much give every person away, and the handoff is very easy anymore. I mean, they're much better at this than I am, and the market takes care of it too. You need 4 eyes, because if I'm busy doing something else, house hits the market, you gotta be fast. And Elizabeth can take care of you much faster than I can. And they're like, oh yeah, she's great, you know.
I would say my buyer's agents are better at working with buyers than I am now, because that's what they do. They have more time to dedicate to them. And if I try to work with a buyer, it gets really hectic, and sometimes I have a hard time meeting timeframes. Brent, I want to hear you on this one.
Well, I'll add a little extra twist on that. The mistake that I see agents making sometimes is getting a team before you're even ready. Like, you know, you can't bring on agents and give them 3 leads a month. You just can't do that, right? And so I see people jumping the gun, or they hire this highfalutin operations manager instead of running their own business. And, you know, so I think for me, I still have my fingers on the pulse every day. I'm not on appointments at all. But to do my job description today includes counting the money in the morning, making sure that I got paid what I was supposed to, the receivables, payables. You know, I'm checking all my agents. I'm a sales manager, is what I am, you know, in that respect. So I'm seeing how everybody's doing on, you know, keeping up with their stuff and who needs some help there. And I still have all of our phone calls come to me, you know, off of our signs. They come to my cell number. Now, right now, my phone is forwarded to my assistant who knows how to answer the phone, right? But those are the money calls, man. If you don't answer that phone within 1 ring or 2, forget them. I mean, that's thousands of dollars. You got to think about that phone call. Every phone call averages of thousands of dollars. If you're at dinner, I have this mentality that, all my agents know what I mean by this. I say, we have the drop the fork mentality. If you're at dinner and you get a phone call and it's not a number you recognize, drop the fork and answer the damn phone now, because that's what people expect now. And if you don't do it, I will. And thank you for not answering the phone. So, anyway, my job description has changed. I mean, obviously I was running the roads and, that year I did all those transactions, man, it was crazy. And I made some sacrifices, some of which I regret to do that. And, at the same time, my business has blown up now to where I work less than Franklin, probably half as much as he does. Just, probably 2-3 hours a day, and I can't believe the amount of money I'm making to do that. But it's that leverage principle. Now, you can't just go leverage and make all that money. You got to know how to do it. And if you've never run a business before, you might want to get a coach who can, head you off at the pass. Because I've made some big mistakes in my life in business. And I went from being a millionaire to on welfare in 1 year back in 2006 when I bought a car dealership in Las Vegas. And so I've made the big mistakes. I've not made, I've seen how this is for me to get to this level, you have to be good at running a business, not just writing contracts. And there's a lot that's involved with that. There's operations, there's marketing, there's management, there's all these things, accounting, all these things that you better be good at or have somebody who is. So I don't go on appointments anymore. I mean, occasionally a past client who insists that it's me, but I still I answer the phone. I just haven't given that up yet. I need to do that eventually, but those phone calls are so valuable. That's the last thing that
He called me, I was on my front porch one day, he was in Rosewood showing a house, and you called me about, I don't know, wanting to know something, I didn't know the answer to. And he goes, I'm here showing this house on whatever street. I'm like, Brent, what are you doing? Do you remember this?
Oh yeah,
What are you doing showing houses, bro?
Yeah.
He goes, what do you mean? And he called me back after the client left. He goes, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Brent,
Yeah. I mean, he helped.
what are you doing?
Hey, you know what? I used to invite this guy to lunch all the time because I wanted, number one, he was my number one competitor. So, keep your enemies close. Your enemies closer. Godfather, one of my favorite movies. But, he's never been my enemy. He's always been helpful. And we used to go to friendlies all the time, but, I invited him every time and he never invites me. So, ask me sometime, but,
we would sit there and eat our shrimp salad or whatever, and we sit in his truck car, and he would pop open his laptop. He showed me his whole budget and everything, the whole thing. And that's how we, I guess, struck up a relationship. I guess we just don't mess with each other too much anymore. Since you're in your underwear. And I'm drunk.
But look,
Can't believe
you
tennis on the lake.
can't just wake up one day and be able to play tennis. You better work your ass off to get there. And you better do it right too. It's not just working smart, but it's working hard. Don't mistake what you're hearing up here. You have to work hard to get to this
Yeah,
spot.
this is no show.
You just don't fall into it. So if you don't want to work hard, then, just go be an agent and settle for your 25 or 30 transactions a year. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Unless you're complaining about not selling enough. Then there is.
I spent somewhere between 10 and 13 years working 50 to 60 hours a week. So it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I built up a business, I built up a database. And then I just continued to leverage more and more over time. It's not like I just hired a bunch of people. It's like I hired this person, I hired this person, I hired this person. So we just added as we needed to.
And you do have to get up. I mean, I get up sometimes 3, 4 in the morning. And if I'm not going to the gym at 5:30, 5:30, I said more before, I was coming downstairs and working. At nighttime, after the kids are, in the bed and dinner with family, back downstairs working until midnight and then back at 4 a.m. working. But I put that work in like everybody else did to get to where I'm at now, and now I don't have to, get up early in the morning. I can go to sleep at 9 o'clock and not be a zombie somewhere or on coffee just to stay awake. So it is putting in the time to get where you want to be. Most people won't make that sacrifice to, put the extra hour in or answer the phone. And it is dropping the fork to answer the phone. So I remember when I was with my family for dinner and once or twice they would hide my phone. We get to the restaurant, I'm panicking because I don't have my phone, and they're like, "Dad, it's on the island at home. When you get home, I'm gonna be there." Because I would literally, that was my third child, was answering my phone. So I had to do that part to get to where I'm at now, to where now I can, I don't answer all the calls that come into our team. I've given them some range, but for the most part, they know if the phone rings to me, then, that means none of them answer the phone, which is upsetting to me because they don't answer the phone.
We'd be on the beach and I'd be with my friends and wife and all that, and the phone would ring and I just real loud. Like I had Tourette's or something. And then I have to go walk over there and my friends would tell my wife, "This is stressful." So anyway, phone's a thing.
So real quick answer, just a quick answer. So when you started in real estate, how many hours do you think you worked either per day, per week versus now? What are your hours that you do?
I mean, we work on the business. Like, back to his point, I'm doing research and development, looking for great ideas. But I will say this, talking about time in, that blog was a big deal in my career. And so,
It was an awesome blog.
I don't do as much anymore because I'm older and I've got twins but that thing, that was an hour or two a night. I mean, till 2 o'clock in the morning, I blog 3 times a week. And they, these professional SEO people would say, "You're not getting any traction on your SEO." I'm like, I don't care if one person calls me off this thing and lists a $600,000 house, it's 15 grand. I'm gonna write a little story. So I didn't really maximize the SEO, but that thing was time put in. I mean, I have thousands of posts in there. So if somebody, types in whatever, not so much anymore, with Zillow Realtors, they dominate the SEO stuff. But back then, that was a big deal for me to get a start.
Hours?
Yeah, like how many hours?
Well, when I first started, I had the part-time mentality. I got into real estate as a backup to what else I was doing. I was like, oh man, I have a food brokerage also from a past career that looked like it was going away. And I'm like, man, I better figure out a backup plan in case this ever goes away because I'm unemployable, right? I'm not putting up with anybody's shit, right? Just in that way. So, I have to work for myself. It's just that. But anyway, I was part-time at first, and eventually after about a year and a half, I decided, you know what, you need to make this work or get out of it. Work it or get out of it. Because I was spending money on stuff, and
So when you went full-time.
well, it was a ramp up. I mean, you can only work as much as you have leads and generate leads and all that. But yeah, I mean, at my peak, I was working 75, 80 hours a week, right? And, there were days, a lot of them, at least 1 or 2 a week where I'm, 7 in the morning till 11 at night. Now, I mean, you have a break in there, here and there, but, showing 30 houses in a day, right? And to that end, as a business person, you want to optimize and make sure you're being efficient, right? So like things like showing time, that's awesome compared to what you used to have to do. Hell, if you were a real estate agent before DocuSign, that's the most life-saving thing ever in real estate, Anyway, so now I probably am 20 to 30 hours a week, maybe, with all the phone calls. I mean, agents call me all hours of the night, on my team, and I'm there for them anytime they need me. And so it's probably 20 to 30 hours a week now.
I was 50 to 60 hours. I started out full time. I was sink or swim. When I was going to real estate school, I quit my job so I could focus on real estate. So when I came in, I was 50 to 60 hours a week, 6 or 7 days a week for a long time. And these days, it's pretty much Monday to Friday, 40-ish hours a week. And I could probably work a little less if I chose to, but, you know, I kind of put in my time. I get up in the morning, I'm usually here by at least 9 o'clock in the morning. Usually leave somewhere between 5 and 6.
You also added in, you're not just doing real estate, you're ALC, you're doing a lot of other
Right.
real
yes.
estate related activities.
I was on the contract committee, I'm on the ALC. I do have other reasons I'm here in the office other than just running the business. If I took out some of that extracurricular stuff, it'd probably save me a good 5 hours a week. And it's funny, it's how I look at it today. I dropped off the contract committee this year because that was 2 hours a month that I didn't want to give up because I had other obligations. So I'm like, okay, contract committee costs me 2 hours a month. They don't need me anyway. We have an amazing contract committee. So, you know, when I look at things, it costs me an hour a month. It costs me 2 hours a month. That's how I look at things these days. Is it worth my time if it's going to cost me 1 or 2 hours a month?
Yeah, I guess when I first got in it, I was in it kind of like a 9 to 5. So I would wait tables over there 6 o'clock at night. So it was, you know, change clothes at the office, wait tables, or sometimes, you know, have my windows dark enough where I can change clothes in the parking lot, or whatever, no. So I just pull up, hop in the back seat, change clothes, and the wait table was like I was Superman in the front. And I kind of weaned myself, talking to other agents, and things kind of kept getting put in my head that you can't be a part-time agent, you gotta be a full-time agent, you gotta be a full-time agent. And having to kind of not really miss showings in the afternoon, but I guess back then it wasn't a lot of showings for me in the afternoon. I can kind of get 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and kind of kill it. But kind of weaning myself off, wait tables, just Saturday and Sunday, and then just really on Sunday and going to work on Sunday afternoon. I was like, you know what? I just have to leave my kids in the backyard. Well, with Shane, I leave in the backyard, but. You know.
In the hot car in the parking lot.
I get up Sunday afternoon, I'm paying with them, and have to go wait table at night, and I was like, you know what, do I really need, you know, this fruit beer and steak and $100 bucks? So, I mean, was it great? Yeah, but I really need it. So one of that night, I was like, hey, this is my last shift, and I'm gonna jump in full time and never look back. It's been a great ride, and I'm glad I did because.
Well, you still take your group to Longhorns for birthdays.
Yeah, it's
So he still goes there, so.
My favorite place to go. I mean,
A lot of times you work at a restaurant, you don't ever want to eat there. After you work there.
It's definitely good. I mean, even now, I probably still work now. Definitely, once my daughter gets to school, and I still take my kids to school, pick them up, so I always want drives now. So once she's out of the car, headsets on, I'm making calls. So 7:30-ish. Somebody got to pick her from school at 3 o'clock. So 7 to 3 is kind of my day for real estate. If they have practice, I can take them to practice and got 2 hours to still be the client if I have to. So I still say I work 40 to 50 hours a week still in the business and still trying to grow my business at the same time.
Let me add one thing to that. I mean, if you're hearing that, you know, Brent and Franklin only work 20 hours a week, oh chief, I could only do that. This probably isn't for you, right? Because you have to love what you do. You have to earn your stripes. You have to be out there kicking ass, okay? And until your business, now, I mean, Franklin and I could both work 80 hours a week if we wanted to. We could expand and we could do a lot of other things. We're just comfortable where we're at. I'm going to be expanding some, but it's okay. But, you know, don't fool yourself. Don't lie to yourself that, oh, they're only working part-time. I can work well, you can work part-time, but if you don't have a big business going, and even if you work part-time, you better be working part-time on the right things, right? So,
That 80-20
That
principle
whole
really works.
leverage thing is where it's at. So
yeah.
to the point, I've told Scott and Matt, I'm like, I'm in a good spot right now. Do I really want to push the gas pedal again? My kids have 3 daughters in their elementary school and middle school.
Pretty good.
I mean, do I really want to go hire another admin and that's another salary? I mean, so I'm just in a comfortable spot to his point.
Yeah.
We could all go push the gas and go try to catch Ben Kenny, but at the moment I'm good.
Yeah.
Unless the right agent comes along and then my support staff gets overloaded and then that's another conversation. But I mean, and that doesn't mean that I don't need to be building my bench. I mean, I think y'all all know Liz Black I mean, she is selling so many houses and her life just stopped. Her husband passed away and she's 8 months pregnant. I mean, she's gonna win, gold this year, I think, at CCRA, working 6 months, and I just lost that immediately. So, and I don't know if she's gonna be back.
Yeah.
So. The building your bench thing is real,
There's always turnover. I mean, there's always turnover. It happens.
but you gotta be
And there's good
out
turnover.
there looking, because your bills don't change.
Right. I have fixed expenses. It's gonna cost me, I mean, I'll share this. It's gonna cost me $200,000 next year to run my business based on my projections, and those, for the most part, are gonna be my expenses, so I know what I need to make.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, it's not like we're just up here doing nothing, and I imagine your budgets are probably done for the year too, but
So were there any books that you read that kind of helped you? I know you talked about Millionaire Real Estate Agent. So we've got the MRA book. Are there any books that you feel like is a must read, or in addition to that one that you got the most out of for real estate?
For me, just the Red Book, and really just talking to top producers, going, like Frank said, going to, I guess, pre-COVID, any class Keller Williams had, no matter if it was Atlanta, Charlotte, Raleigh, Tennessee, wherever it was the weekend, one day, I was there. I went to more classes pre-COVID than, I mean,
And were you going to those classes for knowledge or referrals?
I was for both. I mean, definitely the knowledge. I mean, and I wasn't trying to take, 19 things like, Brent says, bring 19 things back. Trying to get 1 or 2 nuggets to add to my business to grow the business to a better level. And like, now for the last 3 years, I haven't really had to take on new business. It's all been past clients, referrals. Like if I don't, and I guess I could say that if I don't physically know you from a past client or a referral, I don't have to work with you. I mean, I have a team for that reason. And I tell my team that everything I have on the books, I know them from some way, shape, or form. From my kids' school, gym, past clients, somewhere where if the phone rings, I can give it off and not feel guilty that it's my cousin that I'm having to refer off.
Well, I know a lot of agents will go to other market centers in other cities because they may know that referrals are coming from that area. So like when we've got people moving from Charleston here, Greenville here, it makes sense to go to Charlotte for, the classes and hand out your business cards. Hey, if you know of anyone moving this way, let me know. I'll do the same, so it is a great networking referral opportunity.
It's always good to meet somebody that's doing better than you. And as a Keller Williams is one of the few companies that people will keep their door open and share ideas with you all the time. It's not like they have a secret book of, we can't tell you this, but here's page 1, but the other 1,000 pages we can't even go over with you. Like here, everybody's going to. I talk to everybody on the panel about different businesses.
No, I think it's Jermaine.
Carl, go to mute. Thanks. Okay, so what about you, Franklin?
I mean, I don't want to seem anonymous, but I enjoy the One Thing series. I listen to the podcast and all that stuff. I'm not a big reader, honestly. To your point. I mean, I just never really, but I listen and learn. And I don't know if you're going to ask this question about training or not, but my favorite thing is probably the career visioning, this 30, 60, 90. I mean, that thing's magic. It lets you off the hook. I mean, you probably have no problem firing people, but I kind of 30, 60, 90, and the 30, 60, 90 allows you.
Well, it's just the difference in Brent's favor is he probably isn't an emotional firer. He doesn't fire out of emotions. It's from a business standpoint. But the people that he is probably, helping to find another job, career path, are probably the emotional ones.
Just different personalities too. He's
Yeah.
probably a high D and a high S.
And I,
Just different. SI.
I can't think of another real estate related book that I would recommend. I'm sure there's plenty out there. I wouldn't recommend you spend, 10 hours a week reading books. Get on the damn phone and call your leads and your prospects. And don't go to 5 classes a week. Get on the phone and call your prospects and figure out, if you want to spend some time, go learn from somebody else who's already where you want to be. that. But I will say, it's advantageous to know how to run a business. And so, so many real estate agents think they're just a salesperson and have no idea what they make, don't even know when they get paid, just stuff like that. So a background in accounting, a background in marketing, a background in operations and leadership and all these things are, if you want to really get to the big level, maybe you don't, that's okay. But even a medium-sized level, you should have a P&L, you should have all these things that most real estate agents don't have. And so what books it takes to get that information, you can find those as well. But
So we talked about the MRE book, one thing, and we've talked about provisioning. Were there any other classes that you felt like were can help you lay a solid foundation, especially for newer agents?
well, Keller Williams has so many good classes on, like all the stuff in Ignite and all that. That book, the MRE book or whatever, the red book, right? Whatever it is, the red book.
We all have one.
It's all in there. I mean, now I'll say this, I've seen agents follow that to a T to their own detriment. Because you need to look at what everything that's in there makes sense for somebody, but not everything that's in there makes sense for
You have to
everybody.
adapt.
Yeah,
They allow you to
right.
adjust to your own.
Yeah, so,
I'm out of model. I'm out of model.
yeah,
My agents can list.
all my agents can list.
Well, yeah, it's funny that you say that, because both Jeff and you, I remember saying in the past, after being a career visioning or one of these other classes, I might as well just fire everybody now and start over. I mean, Jeff said it when he came here, he came for business planning clinic was what he went to and realized about his business career, which is just saying, if you don't know how to run a business, then you gotta start at that.
Pamela Temple and I took Candy Limehouse out to dinner one night. Candy's been doing this on high level for almost 30 years, and she felt like she needed a pacifier. She learned so much in one dinner. She was so unleveraged, somebody doing that much volume.
And leverage is a hard thing to give someone.
It's a
I
mindset.
always thought, because Ken Temple actually sat on with me a couple of times, he's like, you don't start leveraging your business. And I had the best year, and my goal for Keller Williams when I went to family the first time was, I thought I was this big mega agent, came here, realized I didn't walk the stage, and I'm like, kind of got emotional. I'm like, I'm so good at real estate, so my goal was to walk the stage. And I guess the following year, I didn't walk the stage, and that was one of my big goals was to do number 20 for the region for sales. And I didn't know until I got there, everybody else, I guess, got the insights with me, which was kind of cool. But learning to leverage my business with the right person helped my business like this skyrocket. So I mean, it's not just hiring someone, it's hiring the right person that and they don't have to like know the business. The person I hired was actually my brother-in-law, who was in nursing school, and he knew nothing about real estate, but he was wanting to learn. And Matt was just awesome. I mean, the leveraging your business will help you a lot.
And mind you, you don't have to, the goal for a lot of people is not 7th level. I mean, I don't really want to be 7th level. What I do, I don't need to go to the beach that much, but I learned from Jeff Glover, I think somebody mentioned him, the most profitable team out there is level 3, an admin. I think it's 2 admins, a buyer. I mean, when you get up here, you get into Dangerville. I mean, especially if you're not a good business person. And level 3 is a great spot.
And that when he says that, I'm sure he means like per transaction. Or
Oh yeah,
something.
you're not making more money like, I mean, we're in the whatever millions. I'm talking about pure profit percentage.
Yeah.
Did any of you have a coach? Ever had a coach? All of you did? No JT? Yeah, what would you say was the one takeaway? I mean, if you only ever had one coach, or did you actually get different coaches along the way?
My first coach, it didn't work out where I wanted to be as an agent and what his experiences were not on par with each other. So the first time I got coaching, it just wasn't a good fit. So that didn't last very long. That same company paired me up with a different coach after that, which was a much better fit because he ran a large team up in Philadelphia, which is where I wanted to be eventually. So I thought when I first started as an agent, I wanted to open and own my own company one day, and I realized I didn't really want that after I did it. But yeah, so my second coach was better because I was doing, in the mid-20s for transactions for a couple years in a row. And then when I started getting coaching, it jumped up in the 40s. The first year I had coaching, and then the next year I did 60 something. So I started going up after I got coaching. When I opened my office at RE/MAX, I was really struggling trying to keep up with all the different things I had to do. And I had stopped coaching at that point. I hadn't been coaching years when I opened my RE/MAX office. When I opened my RE/MAX, I started going through Dirk Zeller. Actually, Dirk Zeller himself was my coach. So it was 1 hour a month. And he got me organized with the business and set me up on. It was what Brent said. Dirk Zeller wasn't teaching me real estate. Dirk was teaching me how to run a business at that point because we were at a different place. He taught me how to do P&Ls properly, do red line, green lines, things like that I needed for my business that I didn't have to do when I was just running a team, if you will.
I've had a few coaches, and you have to decide I would recommend getting a coach, and not just in real estate, but in life or marriage, or, you can learn so much from other people. But for me, one of the best benefits from having a coach was we have get-togethers, and all the other agents of that coaches would be there, and we'd all for me, happy hour wasn't about drinking. It was about finding people. What do you do? What do you do? What do you do? And so as I got probably more benefit just from meeting all the other agents, in that organization as I did from I don't need somebody to tell me to get up and make phone calls. Never have. I don't need somebody to, motivate me to work every day and work my ass off. Never have. But, so you have to figure out what is it that you need. Don't just go hire a coach because, you'll just hear them go blah, 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 and you'll be paying them money for no reason. Figure out what it is you need, and then, then ask, then find the right coach. If you need to know how to do real estate, then that's one thing. If you need to know how to lead gen, or you need to know this, so I would ask yourself questions like that before you go hire a coach. But I would highly recommend having a coach, in a lot of different areas of your life.
So Michael Ann Byerly was my first coach. She lives in Las Vegas, and she was a production coach. She goes, "Where's your database?" I didn't really have a database. We got all sideways on that. And she was a production coach. She said, "I didn't need coaching and production. I have that. We're up here doing 40s and 50s million bucks, and I needed a structure coach. I needed help. Cole Banker couldn't help me. So we came over here, and so we've got this guy named Steve Cowett in Atlanta, and he was a pretty good structure coach. And we don't have him anymore. I had to invite my director of operations to lead the team. So he hired the same coach, so I just popped on. And now I have hired a coach for the team, the young ladies. They get on coaching calls with her every week for an hour, I think.
Okay.
That's Chelsea Goodwin. She used to run Harrow's ISA team.
Okay. There's coaches here. Keller Williams has maps, right? You can hire a Keller Williams coach.
Mine were maps.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we're coaches, right, of some sort. If you ever want to, hey, what should I do here? I have agents that aren't even at Keller Williams calling me going, I don't get what I should be doing next.
Brent Downing was calling me.
Right. So, if you want to get better, ask other people what they do. That's one of the first things I did at RE/MAX. When I decided, remember I said I was part-time, and finally I said, I'm going to either get in this or I'm getting out. What I did was I went and asked all the top producers I knew at the time were Wally Sims, Terry Shepard, those people at RE/MAX. What do you do? How do you do it? And that's, to me, is pretty critical.
Anna Page Durant went to California to get coached 20, 30 years ago. They said, get the #1 agent in Columbia and follow him or her around. It was Whitmore. They didn't even work at the same brokerage.
Yeah,
And now she's a top producer with her son.
You know, Brent said something earlier that's important. You do have to invest back in your business. And when I started getting coaching for the first time, it was when the market started to crash. And I was paying, I think it was $1,200 a month, which was a lot of money to me, really a lot back then when it's crashed and you're living closing to closing. But I made the investment in it. And I mean, big picture, long term, it made all the difference in the world for me. But I had to invest back into the business, and I struggled, but I made it work out.
So I've heard a lot of you talk about, making hires, and so that's called leverage, right? So what do you feel like the most important first hire you made that stuck? You know what I mean? It was like this was the right move to make.
I got lucky. I was sitting in a cubby next to Amy Ackerman Carter, and she was in the cubby beside me, and I was handing her leads, and she's really not built to be a realtor. She's high C. And so we just were up a lot emailing, and we just structured a pay structure such that I could afford it, wasn't scary. I paid her 10% of every deal. So I didn't have to write a check unless something closed. And she's been keeping me out of real estate jail ever since. For 15 years. I don't pay her 10% anymore. My coach was like, bro, you better slow down. But that's how I got started.
my first hire, I would recommend for a single agent, probably here's the first couple steps. You get more leads than you can handle. Get a licensed admin. That'd be my first hire. That's what I mean.
Why licensed person?
Well, because then you can hand them leads. You can pay them, a couple grand a month to be your admin and do your own MLS and all your stuff and all that. That's non-sales producing activities. And then you hand them leads and get a split off of them. And then you keep your foot on the lead gen gas pedal. And when you got more than you and they can handle, then you get an agent. And then, but pretty soon, then you start getting a full-time admin, so that to me is how I got going on it.
Another reason to have the licensed admin is because the lockbox capability to help on inspections and inspection
Yeah.
addendums, and that's a whole leverage piece that I'm just not good at.
Let them go to home inspections and right, and let's get that off your plate. Actually, pretty similar to Brent. I agree with what he said. I figured out the things I didn't want to do anymore, that I figured just, where the value wasn't there for me to spend 2 hours in a home inspection. So I sat down and wrote down the things I didn't want to do anymore. And when I hired someone, it's like, this is what you're doing every day.
I kind of had a coach when I got into real estate. I wasn't a paid coach. I just followed Andrea Reynolds, who's a top producer. Followed her around. She was like, just walking around, setting her van, and just went to every appointment, and just saw what she did, which is kind of like my pre-coach, hearing what she was saying, how she was doing. And, no one's perfect, and she'll tell you that she's not perfect, but she definitely took me under her wing, and it helped me out a lot. So I do thank her a lot. I do see her. But with the hiring of the admin, license is good. I got my first admin. He wasn't licensed at first, and after about 3 months, I was like, dude, I'll pay for you to go to school. You gotta get licensed, because going to appraisal, letting inspectors in, final walkthroughs, it was just, also being on the right contract, you're all in about shoot my text, hey, they would write offer, here's the details, it all, or
With
whatever.
DocuSign, you probably have a template, and all they have to do is fill in some names, right?
Reason I have DocuSign though.
Right.
So license admin is what you need is a license admin. It takes time, but license admin do help.
The advantage too is they're not expecting full-time leads, because you're not gonna have full-time leads to hand somebody right off the bat. So you're paying them a salary, then you're giving them a deal or two a month. And then, they might decide they want to be an agent full-time, so then you hire your next admin. And so that's an easy way to kind of launch, like I said before, you can't expect to bring on a buyer agent. And here you are doing admin still, that you can pay somebody $15 an hour or whatever, 20. You're doing all the admin, and meanwhile, go hire somebody to do that and take a few leads, and they're doing a deal or two a month. You're getting 50% split on it, and they're making $4 or $5 grand a month. And then that's how you get going. That's how I did it anyway.
So when
That's
you
what the
have
red
someone
book-
like that, do you pay for their MLS dues and their NAR dues? I mean, how much of that, like you're putting them through school, but are they responsible for the rest of it, or are you paying for that too?
Well, that's up to you. I mean, there's different models out there, and, you know, you might pay for their stuff, you might not. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do that, depends on their split and all that, you know.
Or if you're giving them leads and actually having closings, is that paying for?
I have never paid for my agents, or I do pay for my admin stuff now, but back then she was an agent, so, you know, but I have admin that are just licensed admin, they don't sell now, but it's up to you, but just, so that's the answer to your question.
I remember, my admins, I want to be licensed, but I don't want them to be selling, because they need to focus on the things that I can't do, or I guess I can do, but they do better than I do. So I'd rather my admins be licensed, but not selling, because then, you know, and I've been blessed that they don't want to sell. I mean, I've had two so far, and they don't want to sell, which is great. But they will get a client if they have to. They will go to a closing inspection if they have to. That's the way I like mine, and I will pay them well, and bonuses, whatever they need to. Pretty much, they have my credit card, whatever they need. Just say, I want to buy something, and go buy it.
Got some trust.
Yeah.
Well, another suggestion though is, it depends on what person you have. What's their one thing, or what do they want to do? Because in this business, retention is so critical. Turnover kills your business. So if you have to let, you know, if they want to sell and they feel good, and gee whiz, I've never made this much money, and they do a deal a month, and yet they're still doing their full-time stuff, and they're pumped, you gotta, I mean, that's what you want, is you want your folks that work in your business to be pumped and love what they do, and feel like, and absolutely feel like you're taken care of. That's what you want. Don't penny pinch with people that work in your business. Don't do it, because eventually I'll hire them, and, you know, you can train them for me, and I'll hire them. You know, and then I'll avoid all that crap that, you know, it sucks finding new people.
So the red book coaches that too, go admin first. I mean, if you go buyer's agent first, it's sexier, but now you're doing admin work, to his point. Now your customer service is falling off, and it sucks. And you're getting fired by your sellers. Now your reputation sucks. And so I see why the admin is first. for
Yeah,
sure.
and plus two is you're probably not gonna have enough leads for that full-time buyer. They're gonna want to get in and kick ass if they're thinking they're a full-time buyer. You know, one of the things you ask people when they want to be an agent on your team is, how much money you got to pay? When are you gonna be out of money? Because, you know, you need 6 months if your spouse isn't working or whatever. You need to figure that out and help them. So you don't go through all the trouble hiring somebody, and then they have that oh shit moment in 3 months going, I can't pay my bills, I gotta go back to work for Belk or whatever.
And then when you go ask them how much money they want to make, they almost all say 100 grand. And if you don't have the leads to feed 100 grand worth on a 50-50 split, you got a problem on the way.
Yeah, you're just training agents to come work for me, which I appreciate.
The first time I hired somebody, it was because I was starting to get strapped, and I didn't really have a good formula for anything. A lot of buyers, when I got a listing, I would get, you know, a couple of sign calls off of, and I was pretty good at converting those. But then when I was showing a lot of properties, and I got to where I started to neglect my listings. I'd stick a sign in the ground, and then I wouldn't follow up with them. I wouldn't give them feedback from showings, and we didn't have automation that we have now either. You know, so, you know, they might go a couple of weeks without hearing from me. And also back then, only 1 out of every 4 properties was selling. I mean, there was a lot of listings that would expire when the market started to crash. So I was like, I got to do something different, because my sellers are starting to get ready to fire me because they never hear from me after I stick the sign in the ground. So I went about the wrong way. The first person I hired was kind of a buyer's agent, so they could start showing some of those buyers, but they didn't work like I worked, so that didn't work out. It was a bad hire, but I learned through.
What? You stupid.
Hey, Justin,
Hey, guys, we just lost audio. Can't hear anything.
Okay.
So we'll do sign language.
Can you hear us now?
I know one sign.
This one.
Yeah, you're good now.
But I paid MLS dues for my agents, trying different things, and I found that they didn't really appreciate it. Plus, it took away from their motivation to go sell houses because they didn't have expenses. So that didn't work out well. I wouldn't advise that.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I paid MLS dues. At a certain production, I'll pay the realtor fees. I paid a lot of stuff. And after year 2, I was like, their motivation is not there because they have nothing that they have to pay for. So, I had to redo my agency agreement and say, look, as of, this January this year, where it was, this is on, this is on, this is on. Some balked at it. I'm like, well, it goes wrong because you weren't really producing enough anyway. So, but you gotta, I say like, you don't give up too much up front because you have nothing to give at on the back.
So I know that time management is probably a thing, especially when you have to
Tennis
scheduling your
matches.
tennis matches, right? Get the happy hours, whatever it is you're doing, because that's working for you. That works. Everybody up here has a different method that works for them, right? You're not hearing the same thing over and over. So what do you do to help manage your time so that you can also have that stress-free time and be able to sort of regroup with yourself, cope with the stress, wellness management?
I'm still my calendar is my life. It's digital calendar. I still do my calls from 8 to 10 every morning, and I've got to block out time for me. I still get a massage once a month. I still do things for myself once a month or twice a month for me. And I live by a calendar. I know we're gonna be out of town for volleyball, basketball. It's blocked out. We're on vacation. It's blocked out. I have to live by. I know I gotta be to pick up a kid, daughter's appointment, with whoever I'm doing. It's on my calendar.
Well, I'm gonna add on to my question too, because I don't know about you guys, but have you found that there are different reasons you can give someone like, no, I'm not available on Sunday because, and they just don't feel like that's a good enough reason for you not to show them a house? So throw in there,
I
what-
don't even give a reason. I
what
just
do you
say I'm
tell
already
clients?
booked.
Okay.
I'm already booked.
So what
Don't
is
challenge
it
me
you
on
use
it.
to get your downtime?
I just have a prior engagement, whether it's me getting a massage or taking my daughter to school,
Yeah.
pick her up to school, doctor's appointment. I just want to go to lunch and sit at a restaurant by myself and eat lunch. I have a prior engagement.
I don't think I've ever been challenged on I'm already booked, but I'm available this time or this time.
Right, that's the key. That's
You
the
give them
twist.
time, yeah.
I'm booked if they want. I did that even when I was running the roads. I'm booked on Sunday. Somebody wants to see a house on Sunday. Oh man, I'm already booked. But I can do it Saturday night at 6 or Monday at noon. Well, Sunday's the only time, we can do that. We're only in town for one. Okay, well, let me see if I can reschedule my other stuff, and I'll call you right back. And I'd be like, click.
And then you say, how big's the house? How much is it?
Right, I mean, because I'm booked, it's $1 million house. I mean, what I'm booked doing is going to church and then smoking my cigar and then watching the race and on the boat. So, well, guess what? I got an opening at 10 o'clock Sunday morning, which happens to be on my way to church, so it doesn't screw up my whole day. It's not at 3 in the afternoon.
And then it's,
And then
hey,
they're like,
got
oh
30
yeah, we'll
minutes,
take that.
then I gotta go to my next
Right,
one.
and I gotta be done by here, but I can be, and that always works.
Isn't that called setting up expectations?
It's called boundaries,
Yeah.
it's, we're a service oriented business. And if you can't provide service, you're out of business. And, our consumers expect certain things, just like we expect certain things from our vendors, right? So the better you can provide that service and still have that life balance, the better, right? So.
Yeah, I do that from the beginning. If you give your client the reins to your, horse and buggy from day one, they will run you ragged and you will just hate yourself.
It's a funny thing. 4 of the top producers in the entire market can find it in their schedule to be here for 2 hours, but a lot of agents that need to be here listening to this can't make it because they're out doing other things. Part of getting to this point is learning to manage your schedule, time block, and setting those boundaries. I mean, there's a lot of agents that are good producers, but they're not running their business. It runs them. Someone calls and wants to go see a home, they drop what they're doing and go see a home, and they don't have any sort of schedule they work off of. You know, my schedule's right here on my phone and I put it in and I color code it based on what it is. There's my schedule and I live by this. And, you know, I find it mind boggling how many people allow the business to run them instead of the other way around. I run my business, I have my boundaries. I'm booked when I'm booked and people accept that.
I swear Andrea's pants are on fire all the time. I'm serious. She got
How
so
miserable. How miserable are those people though? Yeah, cool, you're making great money, but if you're miserable and you never get to enjoy it, what's the point?
They may not be miserable, some of them are. but-
Some of them like it, some of them like it.
Here's one other twist on that, and it's called eliminate rework. Okay, I used to be over production facilities. We made, product, and, if you're doing something twice that you could be doing once, all that time it took you to redo something, or like, one of the things that I learned early on at Remax, for example, was like, we put all our forms that we would need when we went on listing appointments in a folder, and that way we wouldn't forget to do one, because back then was before DocuSign, you had to damn run across town to get it signed. So if you just look at what are your activities and how many times do you have to redo something? How much time do you spend doing rework? That could be just free time, but you have to have the discipline to do it right the first time. And sometimes people make you do stuff that, have to redo it. That you can't control some of that, but what you can control and do it right the first time, then you'll be amazed if you've never looked at that way, because you could potentially free up 30% of your schedule. You could potentially free up 30 to 40% of your schedule if you just do things right the first time.
So the one thing book and class teaches that multitasking is a myth. And if I interrupt you doing something, like writing an email, and then I leave, then you have to read the first paragraph again, and then start paragraph 2, and they call it a switch cost.
Yeah.
Gary does it.
Right.
And Jay, switch cost. And I go into that guy's office and ruin his freaking hour switch costing him. I
Right.
just walk in there, see if anybody needs a damn hug, and I just messed him up because
Right.
he's in there doing his stuff.
Yeah. The zero inbox mentality, don't have 850 emails in your inbox. Don't have 9 million text messages in your phone. And all this stuff. If you're reading an email twice, that's rework. It's rework.
Have you seen Franklin's home?
I mean, it's just an opportunity.
Like 70,000.
My rule is I can't keep my.
160.
I just don't delete them. I read them. I just don't.
And one other thing that kind of ties in here is how much is your time worth? You have to have an idea how much your time is worth. So let's take that Sunday afternoon when they want to go look at a home. I mean, it's got to be worth a certain amount of your time. So if you've got plans with your family to do whatever on a Sunday afternoon, how much would someone have to pay you for that 1 hour of time to go show a home? My time has value.
But at the same time, we're sitting here as rainmakers. That's part of the leverage series of this.
I got to that point. It didn't
Hey,
have to
Elizabeth,
smack.
or hey, Liz, or hey, we have 3 Elizabeths on the team. So one of y'all is free and I'm not. So that's part of the beauty of the team.
And leverage is not just the team, like it took me, I guess, like I hired a landscaper to cut our grass, and it took me, I guess, as of 4 years ago to realize it takes me 2 hours to do that. I can pay him $50 and him and his son another 30 minutes. So like just doing that, I mean, when they pulled up, I saw them, I was working from home, before I can even go get a check and give them the check, they were in the car, done, cut, edge blown, and I was like, damn, that saved me 2 hours of my day.
Yeah.
So now, just doing that, I mean, the small things you leverage. We have somebody that cooks dinner for us, they bring it to the house and drop it off, pay them to cut the grass. So just little things like that, you don't realize it's a money factor, but how much time are you getting back to your day and your life?
So I think that's in the one thing also. So you need to master leverage on all levels of your life.
Yeah.
Not just showing houses and inspections and stuff like that. And there's a quote in bold, if you don't have a maid, you are the maid.
Yep.
I mean, your house might be shitty, messy, but.
When Franklin said, I mean, it's great to come home on a Friday afternoon, my grass is cut, walk in the house, it smells good, everything's cleaned up, and the kids come home and it's like, shit, but, for the most part, the coming and all that stuff is done, it's great, and the girl brings the dinner, and, it's in the refrigerator, you pop it in the microwave, and that's hours of our week that's done without even thinking about it.
I haven't owned a lawnmower in years and I'm happy not own a lawnmower.
So can we make a pact that we don't let Mo Anderson see this? There's a lot of customers.
Scott, right there.
Oh, he doesn't like it when I throw it up.
Yeah. So, going back a little bit back to the business part, so with your databases, you said that you didn't really start with a database, your phone was your database, right? Your neighbors.
And now there's Facebook, so there's means of communication all over the place. We have not gone over to Command yet. We're a Boomtown team. And so I've got all these leads and stuff in there. But my database used to be index cards in this back pocket. And when someone hit the market, I'd go through my index cards, who needs 300 and 205, 300, that was high.
That was, yeah. We used to advertise in the newspaper. That was definitely the 90s.
Yeah, the abbreviated little thing to say, like.
Yeah.
little-
Trying to make them still understand. Yeah, he was still like, what's a frog? Like, you must not have them around. How about you, Brent?
What's the
Did
question?
your database start with just like your phone, or how did you get your database up and running? How did you contribute to your database?
You mean, how do I add people in my database?
Well, when you
or
first
what,
started,
CRM or?
When you first started, like, you probably had like neighbors or
Yeah,
friends, but
I mean,
what was your
I had
like
it all in
prospect?
Excel spreadsheets, like everybody I talked to was in an Excel spreadsheet initially, and then, I went to, every company has a CRM that you can use. And this is a good quote, it's not from me, but the best CRM is the one you use, the one you actually use, because there's really not a lot of magic in the CRM. And I see the shiny object people changing CRMs every year, thinking that's gonna suddenly, let them not work and make more money, which is not the way it works. So, but yeah, I mean, your marketing to your database is critical, right? And your past clients and, all those are the best leads you can have.
It's much less expensive to generate the lead that you already have than to go get another one off the billboard or whatever. We're just not good at it for some reason.
Pretty much the same. I mean, I had names written down in an Excel spreadsheet, but there was no real organization or sortability. So one of the very first things my real estate coach did with me was have me clean up my database, make sure I had correct information, and then sort it. So my database now is everyone in there is an A, B, C, or D. And that's my first categorization. As the CRMs have gotten more advanced, I can do things like local, not local, former buyer, I can add custom tags on there now, which is great, but.
And A is your hot, ready to go right now.
No,
Okay, how do you do your categories?
we're gonna have a class on this actually early next year, but A's for me, yeah, it's a referral source. So an A is probably gonna send me, I can count on them to send me multiple referrals a year. And, very few people, you're gonna have very few A's in your database because you're usually human resource people or something like that, where they're sending you incoming employees. B's are gonna be good for 1 or 2 referrals a year. C may or may not send me a referral. If a C does send me a referral, they become a B. And I treat the referrals in there differently based on whether they're an A, B, C, or D. A D is someone I need to stay in touch with, but they're probably never going to send me a referral. They're on the newsletter list, that sort of thing, because they're going to call me when they sell their house eventually, but they're not going to tell their friends to call me when their friends get ready to list,
Okay,
that sort of thing. So I categorized my database and really cleaned it up and started doing a better job with it when I got coaching, but those are things I didn't really
categorize
do.
your clients differently, because those are your lead sources, but what about your actual people?
Client's a client. I treat all my clients the same, and it doesn't matter if it's a mobile home or a mansion. I mean, I treat my clients the same, but I treat my database differently.
Okay.
I think.
I assume by client, you mean they're actively in the market to buy or sell a home.
Yeah, well, I know with
They're, I
MRA,
have
we're
a listing
talking
of them
about
or whatever.
hot right now is, top
I'm
tier,
talking
and
about-
then 3 to 6 months,
So
and then some
lead-
hot next year.
My database
Yeah.
is not a lead system. I have a different lead system. I have a different lead pipeline, and that's separate from my database. My database is my sphere.
Okay,
So I have a sphere and I have a lead pipeline.
what were you gonna say, Frank?
Just what you just said.
Okay.
There's hot, there's nurtures, there's archive, there's all these categories that you put your people in, if they're ready to go in a car right now, they're hot.
Yeah.
What's another one? Nurture, cultivate.
Pet.
Trash.
Trash, clothes, whatever. Go ahead, Jason.
So I guess is it more about your leads or your past clients in the database? That's what I'm confused on the question.
Well, that's just it there. So we're talking about database but some people may have thought database meant your clients. It doesn't always just mean your clients. It can also mean your lead sources. So that's what I was trying to point I was getting across was that there are, you have to in your own mind know which one you're talking about to know which ones are you putting
You
in.
have a spirit
You need
and a
to
lead
put both
pipeline, or
in,
they want
right?
the same for you.
I got both, and then like, you don't go into like, I guess, a database to the close client. So we have leads, close clients, and I've always had a database because that's the way I was trained. They wanted to have a database. And like I said, you don't feed it or just use it, it's kind of worthless. So you do gotta reach out to them, email, text, call. If you don't, you're just kind of, it sucks to see your past listing with another sign in front yard or on Facebook, they sold, they're like, dang, like, how did I mess that up? So if you don't, reach out to them and touch them.
Man, I hate that more than anything when a past client lists their home with another agent. I know they have other friends and there's a million people in the business right now, but I do not like that.
When you add them on Facebook and then you see half of their friends or people you already know, they're other agents.
Yeah. But it does happen from time to time. I mean, I've gotten better at accepting it, but I don't like it. I'm like, man, why'd I lose that person? What'd I do wrong? But for every 10 people in your database, you should be getting one transaction, so.
That's when you go through a jar of termites under the house.
Throw some nails in the driveway.
We're not fiduciary anymore, bye.
Okay, so this is sort of a multi-part question here. So do you have a business plan? Do you already have it ready for next year? And how do you track your numbers? And how often you track your numbers?
Yes, yes, and yes.
So do you have a business plan? No?
I have a P&L.
Okay,
Goals, yeah.
411s and GPSs, we do that.
Okay.
A one-page
counts.
business plan
that counts.
with the girls.
The answer is yes to all three of those, but part of my business plan is sitting down with my agents and making them do a business plan because their plan becomes my plan, because their goals become my goals.
Yes.
So,
So do you already have yours done for next year?
yes, all my agents have done one. We did that in October. And then after I did theirs, I did mine.
So sort of like a wants and needs analysis.
How much it starts with profit. We do profit first. How much do you want to earn in 2022? And then we work backwards from there. Based on how much you've told me you want to earn, you need to do this many transactions, and then we need to
So
do
the
a budget.
business
So
planning clinic.
we do a
just like
business
that,
planning clinic, and
individually
we start with profit. How much do you want to earn? And then we just work backwards from there.
Have you been to Profit Camp?
No, but I learned that from my coaching, and all those coaches more or less steal ideas from each other anyway. So my business plan generated from my business coach back in 2007, and I still use a similar model today. And it was a business plan he used when he ran his team. And I do it on an Excel spreadsheet. It's not fancy, but I've got the calculation set up there. They tell me a profit number and I plug it in, and then it calculates from there.
So you know your numbers.
Yeah, I know the numbers. I know when there's a profit, I plug it in. It calculates 25% for taxes. It calculates the commission split. And then we plug in your average sales price. And based on your average sales price, you need to do this many transactions. I know you need to have 10 conversations to get one client. So if you want to do this many transactions, this is how many people you need to call a week when you're
So are you
prospecting.
tracking it daily? Are you tracking?
I leave it up to my
weekly,
agents to
monthly?
do that, but I think in 2022, we're going to work on some accountability there.
Okay,
Where, yes, we'll sit down as needed and review what they're doing versus what they wanted to do.
how about you, JT?
We do the 411 at the beginning. I know everybody's goals are, and I do my best to make sure they can reach those goals. I mean, I gotta do better at more accountability on my part with my team. I get busy trying to run it and keep my part going where it does slip time to time, but I mean, I see for the most part, because we do have conversations, some daily and weekly, that they are, working hard at it. It's just a matter of, I think I gotta do a better job of,
Brent, how do you track your numbers?
Well, I'm a numbers guy. I've got all kinds of numbers. I've got a P&L, of course, and I've got, I know the source of every closing, know how much commission came from it, so therefore, and I know how much I spent on every lead source, so I know the ROI by every lead source, which would be very important for everybody to know that. So like, is the juice worth the squeeze on this stuff, right? And am I getting my payback on it? And the higher your ROI, the better you usually, unless you're just like closing one a year and you spend $10 on it and the ROI looks crazy, but, so you should, I would suggest, that it's very important that you know where all of your income is coming from, what lead source it comes from, how much you're spending on that lead source. It's a real easy calculation to how much did I spend last year on, lead source X? How much GCI did I get from that? Just divide the GCI by how much you spent, and that's your ROI. And
Are you tracking it like daily, weekly, monthly? How are you?
well, I mean, I don't update the ROI. I update that about quarterly. All our closings though, I update, by agent, how much they've closed and how much they have pended every day. As soon as we get a deal in that, I found that it's important to know not just how much an agent closed, but how much they've pended. And then I report that every month in our sales meetings. And, they set goals every November for what they want to do the following year. And it's not just a wish list, it's how you're going to do that, and I'll help them, how can I help you make that happen? So those are some numbers I have. I, of course, have a cash flow statement. I have net worth statements. I have all those accounting things that you want to have when you have a pretty good sized business. You also want to know, you should keep track of all your expenses. And I would suggest that you know your business better than your tax advisor, that you not do your own taxes. That you get somebody that actually knows what they're doing. The first time I ever had somebody do that for me, they saved me like 30 grand one year. That was like, 15 years ago. But, so it's not just about the income, it's how much is going out, because what you really want is profit. And then you want to not pay Uncle Sam, you want to pay them as little as you can on that profit. So there's those kind of levers to pull every day, or not every day, but it's just, that's part of running the business. But in terms of marketing, if you have a marketing hat on, you want to know what your ROI is on every lead source. So that's something that we do. And then from a sales management's perspective, you want to be able to report to your salespeople how they're doing against their goal. And what I do every month is I'll put everybody's numbers on the whole team, and everybody gets everybody's numbers. So the ones that are kicking ass are like, yeah, I'm kicking everybody's ass. And the ones that aren't doing so well, they're like, shit, I need to do better, right? Or at least, that's going through most people's minds.
Because it's hard to make up for a whole year if you only look at them once a year.
Oh, no. I
Whereas if
wouldn't,
you're
no.
looking at least once a month, then at least
yeah,
you're
monthly.
adjusting.
We don't have sales meetings every week or 3 times a week, or I'm not, it's just not my style. That's not what we do. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you do, but
At least once a month.
I have found for me monthly is plenty. And that meeting we do usually virtually, and it usually lasts about an hour and a half. It's painful for them because they have to listen to me talk the whole time. But, there you go.
Do you have any sort of numbers? Okay, so from what I understand from most teams, that everyone's always hiring. Is that true for you guys? Are you always looking for another agent or looking for another admin? So what is the best way that you find? Is it just like through word of mouth that you're finding the people to add to your team, or is it utilizing that? How are you finding people or other agents that you're working with?
Mine are literally always falling on my lap. I don't think I've ever actively recruited agent or admin. It's just been,
Got lucky.
when God says, hey, I think you need someone else, my phone is rings. That's how mine has always been.
Different sources over the years, some people from my sphere that get into the business, they usually want to start out with help. Sometimes from the company. When I had my office, I didn't like hiring experienced agents. They came in with bad habits. They thought they knew everything, but there's a reason they're coming to work on a team. So I always had really rotten luck with people who are already in the business or have been in the business for a little while. I'm not talking about that person, 6 to 12 months in and is floundering and then comes looking for help. I love those guys because they're motivated, but different places. I used to recruit.
They appreciate a lead.
Yeah.
They work a lead.
They will. They're wonderful. I love those guys. And I liked getting new agents right out of school. When I had my own office, I used to go to all the real estate schools, and I went with the goal of trying to hire, one person per class. One month I made a mistake of hiring 7 agents at one time. And I would never ever do that again because my phone rang 24/7 with questions. But it was a lesson learned. But yeah, one a month I can handle with no problem, and it doesn't with the training and our onboarding through COVID, honestly, has gotten a lot better and a lot smoother because I realized we had to be more effective and we had to do some automation. I recorded some training videos, things like that.
So my philosophy, one philosophy I've always had is I'll always have more leads than I have agents, always. And there's some team owners that want to skimp on lead gen and don't want to pay more than what they have agents, so then they starve agents and they'd rather be that way. As I mentioned before, I want our agents and our admin and all those people think it's awesome to be here, and the sky's the limit for them. So I'll never have more leads or more agents than leads. So yes, I'm always looking for a good agent. And maybe some people on this call might find that it's the value proposition that I have to offer is I pretty much put the check equity in, you put the sweat equity in. They don't have a nut to cover, the agents don't. They get trained by the best, and they get all the tools and all the stuff and everything. And you want to make $200,000-300,000 a year net, I'll help you make that happen. So always looking for the right agent and that person usually looks like this. They're not always new agents, but a lot of times they are. They don't have a lot of money to invest. They don't, even if they did, they wouldn't know where to invest it. So, I've already walked a mile in all those shoes, so I can plug them right in and, okay, you want to get busy? Let's go. And here's how to do it. Here's the scripts. Here's how you do it. Here's what you do from 8 to 10, everything. Here's the recipe to make that happen. And as long as they're teachable and want to work their ass off, and they love this business. They love helping people, right? You have to love helping people to be in this business. If you don't, then it's probably not a really great business for you to be in. Admin wise, I try to always have extra capacity. So if somebody does leave or somebody's on maternity leave or whatever, we got it. It costs me a little more to do that, but on the other hand, it costs you way more to lose your only admin that, oh my God, if they left, we'd be screwed, right? And then they leave and you're screwed. And now you can't sell, you got to go do their job. And, to that point too, it's critical to have systems in place and have them written down. Have procedures for what do you do? Write down your job description. Everybody write it down. How do you do it? Where do you go? So when you do have turnover, it's not as painful. So, but always looking for good talent when, and I know somebody right now I'd love to hire, but I already have a half a person more than I really, really need in my admin. And I'm glad for that. And the people that I have at my hub or in the office, they're awesome. All 4 ladies that I have working for me will kick ass on anybody's admin in this town, anybody's, including these guys. So they just do. They're great. And I like to think that I pay them well. I treat them well, because I don't want them to leave. They don't want to. So what do you think about that, Franklin?
I think I wouldn't trade Amber for anybody, but
Amber's pretty good. I've learned not to hire part-timers. That's not good. You're always looking for what we call highway talent. Talent's great, but highway talent's better.
Versus cul-de-sac talent.
Versus cul-de-sac talent, which is just talented, but they don't want to, solve many problems or go to the next level, and there's no talent at all. And so, I've got this ad out there. I've got 26 agents trying to apply, and we haven't hired any of them, if that tells you anything.
It's hard to be a
If you're doing
part-timer in this
provision
business. If someone's working another job and they don't need the income from real estate, it's hard to get out of your comfort zone. They don't like to come in and cold call or prospect, or do the things you need to do because they're already comfortable. But when you have to go sell a house to pay the bills,
They got,
it's a different kind of motivation.
so you're gonna laugh at this, and Brian already knows it, but I had a 2% Zillow answer rate. Did your head explode?
Yeah, that's not very good.
That's not good at all.
I know.
That's answer rate. That's not even conversion rate. You answered 2% of the
It's
Zillow
terrible.
calls.
So I'll tell you, this is, you know, Zillow, if one of the team members pushes the red button before another team member pushes the green button, it goes to the other, another team in the zip code. And so I had to fix that. So I mean, during COVID, it's been such a great year. These young ladies have done so well. Is what I'm getting at. I want hunger for my next agents, is what I'm saying. To his point.
Yeah, you gave me a hard time about firing people, but man, I'll tell you
Oh,
what, you know, the thing is.
Slow to hire, quick to fire.
Well, look, I don't remember the last, I mean, I think I fired an agent maybe a couple of years ago. I could be wrong. I had to fire an admin once because she was stealing from me. But I mean, when they're not performing, it's obvious that they don't have a passion for this. You're doing people a favor by introducing them to their next career. That happened to me. My last two jobs in the private sector, I got fired from, thank God, because I just didn't have a passion for it anyway, you know? And, you know, I found this where I do have a passion for it. I'm really good at it. It's my calling. And so, you know, short term, it might hurt for some of those people. You know, I used to have this mentality that I only want killers on my team, only killer agents. And yes, I want killer agents, but I do have a few agents that aren't killers. And so if they're not taking the number of leads, if they're a disproportionate number of leads, you know, if they're at 10 leads a month and they're closing one a month, okay, as long as you're not a drag on the hub or me or whatever, I'm okay with that. You know, maybe that's a mistake. You know, some teams don't allow that. Some teams do allow that. The only thing is you do invest a fixed amount of time to train agents. So my hourly rate training agents goes way down when I'm doing part-timers. But I've also fixed that by one of my senior buyer agents. Now I have all my new agents go through him and they pay 5% of their commission to him on their first 10 deals. So he can train them instead of me.
So you know the story about the thoroughbreds and I call them show ponies because donkeys are a little harsh.
Yeah.
You know what I'm doing there?
No.
So the thoroughbreds want to be in the same barn as the thoroughbreds. And the thoroughbreds don't want to be in the same barn as the donkeys, as the story goes. But what happens is the donkeys don't want to be in the same barn as the thoroughbreds either because they're agitated. Both are agitated. And so the donkeys pop off because their names at the bottom of the board constantly. And so sometimes, if you're not fast to fire, it's just going to happen. It's just how long do you want to waste those leads? Over time.
And it is a fine line because if they're taking 80 leads a month and closing one a month, no, that ain't gonna happen because I'm sending you $100 bills. I expect a return on investment. But I don't know. It's something I'm playing with, and you know, we'll see. But if they're simply taking all these leads and answering 2% of Zillow calls, that ain't happening for more than 5 minutes, man.
All right, so I have a last question, then we'll take questions from people here. So if there was one piece of advice that you could give to anybody that's here or listening, what would that be?
Go to Career Visioning, the whole leverage series.
Okay.
If we're talking about a team.
No, for
like
anybody,
a
I mean,
rainmaker,
anybody should, because anybody that's even thinking about hiring and just one admin and being, you know, second level.
if you're asking me as a rainmaker, what I would advise somebody to do, we go to that. It'll save you tens of thousands of dollars and teach you all kinds of stuff. I learned more during that. I went to you with you in your car to Recruit Select, Gene Rivers, 2 weeks after I left Coldmaker, and learned more in 3 days in Durham, North Carolina than I did in 10 years.
Frank, what did you say it was?
Career Visioning, the leverage series.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This business is about leads. you're out of business if you don't have leads. Keep your foot on the lead gen gas pedal at all times. And you as a business owner, there's nothing more important than you can do than that. And, you know, and make sure that you give your clients 5-star service, you know, so you'll get leads just by doing that. So there's a lot more to this than that, you know, running a business like a business person and things like that. But I would say if you did nothing else, keep your foot on the lead gen gas pedal and give your clients 5-star service at all times.
If I had an agent come to me for advice with a growth mindset, they want to know how to grow, I would tell them to invest in coaching. Someone who's been there, done that, and can walk them through the process and hold them accountable to do things properly as they grow and learn to leverage and learn to run a business. Absolutely hire a coach. It'll save you a lot of mistakes by
And it
trial and
pays for
error.
itself.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. If you
Get the
listen,
right one.
if you get the right one to listen,
That's
that's
what
why.
I need to do with this.
My first coach wasn't a good fit. That's why my second coach is where I took off. My first coach just wasn't a good fit for me. So I guess 2-part then. Yes, hire a coach, but make sure you hire the right coach.
I know I've known agents here that have started with one coach, and as their business got to a certain point, they had to move on to another coach to get them to the next point. So that is what they do. So every coach knows that they hope that you're going to outgrow them.
There are
Yeah.
coaches that excel at teaching someone how to be in real estate and how to find business and how to make money. And then there are coaches that teach you how to build a team and start to leverage. And they're not necessarily the same people.
Right.
They might be, but they're probably not.
And don't be ashamed to get a coach. Don't be too proud. And Michael Jordan, and Tiger Woods had shooting coaches and swing coaches and all that.
Tom Brady still has a quarterbacks coach that he works with. every
Nutrition
year.
coaches, I mean,
Yeah.
I said the same thing, definitely, you know, find a coach or a mentor that's gonna help you get to that next level, because, you know, being mediocre and, they say, you hang around 5 millionaires, you're gonna be the next millionaire. So if you hang around, you know, non-millionaires, you're not gonna ever get to where you wanna be at. So, and always ask questions, don't be scared to ask questions, don't be scared to grow and learn, because in this business, if you don't, and, you know, ask questions to get to that next level, you're gonna be a mediocre agent and not be an agent. And when the market does shift, if you don't know how to answer the phone calls, get those leads, you will be gone in the next 18 months to 2 years. If you know how to run a business.
So I'm gonna open up to you guys. Do you have a question or an aha? Anything along those lines?
I want to hear some ahas as well from you guys. We're not getting off easy. We've done all the talking. We want to hear from you guys with some ahas and questions.
I can ask questions too.
And I want both.
I think the biggest thing is, when did you guys decide to stop working in the business and spend more time on it?
Well, I mean, I also work in my business, but it took other people that were doing way better than me to see my business and to repeatedly tell me, you need to change what you're doing, or you're gonna get burned out, you're gonna quit the business. So I mean, listening to, again, people that are doing better than you will get you farther than your advantage.
when I had the mindset that it was about them and not you, not me, that's pretty much when I stepped off and started working on the business, and getting out of the inspections and day-to-day stuff. When you start a team, it's about them. And Chris and Cole will tell you that.
When you say, stop working in your business and work on, what exactly do you mean by that?
So that you're not doing the day-to-day, you're not out showing all the time. You're not
So
going
when did I
inspections.
start getting out of production?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's been
When he called me,
yeah, I was gonna catch him, but once I saw I could, I'm catching him. But
we had to go open
it
up.
was an evolution. It was an evolution. Like I said, I mean, when I hired that first licensed admin, that's a way of starting to pull back a little bit. You know, you're always looking to up your hourly rate that you make. So you got to know how many hours you're working and how much you're actually making, which a lot of agents don't do. And then the first production that I started working myself out of was buyers. And then, then it's really critical that you find the right listing agents out of those agents to take that part over. Buyer agents, listing agents, it's two different jobs. I mean, not totally, but it's two different jobs.
It's different
And,
mentalities.
you know, one of
for the agent.
my oldest agent on the team is a buyer agent because he's just so awesome at it. You know, and listing wise, he's just not as good at listing as he is that. He's great at listing, but he's so good at buyers. So my agents either get buyer leads or listing leads. They can all buy or list. But anyway, so I worked myself out of listings. I mean, I still do maybe 5 a year of all combined, but don't do that too soon. Right. You know, I mean, if what's going through your mind right now is I can't wait to get out of doing this. I mean, better check yourself, man. You better look yourself in the mirror and say, why am I even doing? Isn't there another career I should be doing other than this? Because I mean, life's too short to be doing something that you hate or that you don't like doing. I mean, I liked being with buyers. I like, you know, going on listing appointments. I mean, I did. I liked being with people. I liked helping them. But eventually, if you're going to grow your business enough, you just can't afford to be at that kitchen table anymore. You have different responsibilities. So my job description changed from, you know, head sanitation engineer to CEO all in one to, you know, eventually I'm more specialized. So that happened. Oh no, it took me 5-6 years to start working out of buyers, and then, you know, 8-9 years to work out of listings. Now I'm not in production.
My favorite client was always the first time home buyer. Nobody is ever more appreciative than the first time home buyer that you help, but I can't do it. For me, it was an evolution over time. It doesn't happen overnight. You know, when I started running out of time to do the things I needed to do, I would figure out what I wanted off of my plate, and I would hire someone to do that, or I would, if I already had that person there.
Recording in progress.
So I don't know what that was, but anyway, as I was starting to get too busy to keep up, I would hire people and I would move that off, and eventually I work mostly with sellers now. Every once in a while I work with a buyer, but again, it's not because I want to work with a buyer, it's because of who the buyer is, or they want me. It was someone I help, you know, it was someone I help buy their last home, and they feel they need me, and it's an insult if they're getting passed off if they feel that way. So I'll occasionally work with those people, but I moved out of production as I ran out of time and just eventually worked that way.
Any other
First thing I
questions?
moved off of my plate, by the way, transaction coordinator, the closing process, sending the emails to the attorneys, going and find a survey, meeting the appraiser, I hate sitting through inspections. To me, that's the biggest.
So if you can't afford a full-time admin right off, you might want to consider getting a transaction coordinator, someone to do your closing coordination.
When I first started,
It's licensed.
I hired a transaction coordinator. If I recall, I either paid them like 5 or 10% of the closing to do all the closing stuff. So they would schedule the inspection, go to the inspection, because I wasn't in a place where I could commit to paying a salary or anything at that time. So I gave a percentage of the closing to start out. Kind of like Franklin did, honestly. It's like, hey, you do all the closing and I'm gonna give you 10%, not to exceed. I had a cap on it. So if it was a higher dollar amount, they weren't getting 10%. But it was. I had a cap on there. I was like, not to exceed.
Just don't.
It also had a minimum though. I was like, if it was a $low transaction, I wouldn't pay below a minimum either. So it went both ways.
Don't get complacent on hiring a TC, you know, and not hiring an licensed admin who you can send leads to, you know, because that's, to me, that's pretty critical in how you get going. Because if you just hire a TC, you're never going to send in leads. So what are you going to do then? You know, so you could, you know, get about 90 to 110% of your personal capacity on production, and then hire your admin, but keep your foot on the lead gen gas pedal, and then suddenly you can start making that happen. You'll take a pay cut when you get out of production, both of them, right? I took a pay cut when I stopped listing property. But the next year was way better and way better and way better. It's part of investing in your business long term.
I gave away a lot of money over the years. When I had buyer's agents, it was a hard mindset to know that I had the ability and the time to maybe take on a few of those. But I also knew I have agents that depend on me for those opportunities.
Yeah.
So I made a lot of sacrifices over the year, giving away clients I could have worked with and could have made more money on that transaction. But when you have a team, it's important that you take care of your team and give them those opportunities. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle building a team, is they have a hard time giving those opportunities away and putting their agent ahead of them sometimes.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So for a newer agent, I understand you gotta make phone calls from 8 to 10 every morning. That's a given. But how would you guys structure your day in order to get more leads? Would you go door knocking later on in the afternoon? Call contacts on the phone? What would you guys recommend?
How much money you have?
Not a lot.
So good old fashioned real estate, is, and everybody should, I think that's a good, not everybody has to do good old fashioned. When I say good old fashioned, knocking on doors, expireds, FISBOs,
Open
sphere of
houses.
influence, open houses, all those things, and if you're not full-time busy, then, you need to be full-time busy generating leads, except when you're on appointments, you need to be full-time busy.
So
I
if
used
you're
to
not
have
doing
a-
knocking, not
I
doing
used to
an
have open
house,
houses every single
making phone
Sunday.
calls.
What better way to meet buyers than to have an open house for, 3 hours in a house? You have buyers who are actively looking for a house coming to you that you have a chance to start to build a relationship with. But yeah, if I was a brand new agent, I was starting out, and didn't have any money in this market, I would be hammering. Well, I would spend at least 1 hour on the phone with my sphere. I'd probably spend that second hour calling for sale by owners, trying to make appointments with FISBOs. When the market turns, I would go from for sale by owners to expired listings. I love expired listings. We just don't have any right now. Expired listings were always my favorite thing to work.
Or join a team.
Or join a
Join a
team.
team
yeah.
is probably the
Join a
answer.
team, you're in business.
I would have
right
started on
away.
a team. Out of curiosity, I would have started on a team if that was the thing back in the day. What do y'all think you would have done? I'm
Well-
pretty certain I'd have started on a team.
It took me 9 months to close my first deal. Okay, now I wasn't all in, but it took me 9, and that was out of my sphere, somebody I knew from the cigar store.
Yeah.
So,
It's like having a baby.
yeah, and, I didn't sell that much that first year and a half, and so there's pros and cons to being single agent versus on a team, so I would look through those two.
Google, mega open house or super open house when you leave here. Lisa Archer made a career off of a mega open house.
You don't have to have listings for an open house. There's a lot of agents with listings that
Borrow one of ours.
don't want to go sit in a
One of
house
theirs.
on a Sunday afternoon, that I'm happy to give you listings to go.
But the mega open house leverages the neighborhood. That house gives you permission, better permission to have a public open house, of, choose your neighbor, a contest, guess what it's gonna sell for, give away an Echo Dot, or whatever, just Google that, and that's a way to leverage your market center.
Thank you.
Kim?
So that's all the advice we don't have anyway. What do you have a little bit of money that you want? Not a ton.
I'd still save my money and do the things I just said. I still wouldn't spend the money. If you want to get a Zillow zip code and you want to work it really hard, you could, but I would still focus on the things that don't cost money first. For sale by owners, open houses, I would still put them first.
Because if you're gonna spend thousands of dollars to get in the top 3 on a Zillow.
How are you going to compete with the budget? Even if you have a little bit of money on Zillow or buying leads, that's the thing. So you have to look at where your return on your investment is going to be. How much would you have to invest to make it worthwhile versus simply picking up your phone? And if you could call 20 for sale by owners and get 1 listing out of it, you're going to get a far better return off of 20 phone calls and 1 listing with a for sale by owner than anything else, in my opinion, because it's just, you have time right now to start building it.
Do you know about Red X and Vulcan 7 or these kind of tools?
Red X is great. I have Red X. That would be a good source. Red X. I do have Red X, and we use it for the team. It's amazing. So Red X is a company that's a data conglomerate. So they sync with MLS, and if there's expired listings, they pull in all the expired listings every night. So I can go to Red X and see whatever listings expired, which are very few right now. And quite frankly, if it expired, you probably don't want it either. So, but it also, there's an add-on service where it'll also scour Zillow and all different websites out there and pull in for sale by owners every night that are newly listed. So you can go. So instead of having to drive around or dig through the Zillow yourself looking for sale by owners on there, I think it's about $900 a year for Vortex is what they are now. They used to be Red X. I still call it Red X too, but it's Vortex now. They rebranded, but yeah, for like $900 a year, they collect all the data for you, And all you have to do is hop on every morning, hit the refresh button, and then just go down the list and call.
Yeah, you just wake up and there's your list.
Yeah.
How much money do you have?
Well, I guess my point was, I've tried all of these options and it takes a long time, and if you do have a little bit of money left, I guess if you haven't had a few sales, you want to put 10% of those back in. I just don't know the smartest way, and this is for everybody out there, who might have a little bit of money. Or is it pointless because you're competing with you guys?
No,
It's not pointless.
no.
We're not calling, you have a huge advantage on us because I'm not gonna sit there and call for sale by owners anymore. I'm just not there in my career. So I would say you actually have a massive advantage over me if you're willing to do things like that at this point, because I'm not gonna do that myself. I've got other things I spend my time on.
And you can spend money on like the Facebook ads, like
Yeah.
Instagram, and you can put a cap on it. You can say, I'm only gonna spend $5, or what, 10, 15, 20 cents per ad. But the thing is, what most agents don't do, when that lead comes in, if you're not calling the right way, it doesn't really matter. Because I mean, I see it on my team, things go out and they're not getting called. And, I've been to the point where on my team, I'll, after 7, 8 months, I'll dig in the database and just plug in their name in the tax records. Oh, they bought a house. You know, that lead bought a house 3 months ago, $300,000. You miss out on a lot of money.
Those leads are gold. Those leads are gold mines. That's just dollars sitting there. So it's not just the initial phone call, but you need a follow-up plan in place. And like Brent said, the CRM is best is the one that you use.
Yeah.
So you need a CRM where you can follow up, when that lead first comes in, you first get that opportunity, you need to probably call them a couple times a week for the first 2-3 weeks. Then maybe dial it back to, you call them once a week, and they may never ever pick up the phone. I've got a listing coming up tomorrow where I had a phone conversation with an expired listing 2 years ago, and I just threw him on my newsletter list. So he called me last week that he's ready to sell now. I never even met him in person, but he said he called me because I kept in touch, which really was automated. I was sending out a newsletter every month, and he was just getting the newsletter from me.
So where are you from? Yeah. So I was gonna say find your tribe. So for me, that's the State House, the Junior League, Carolina, all that. And it's my sphere is big. And I don't know if you're in the church, I don't know if you sing in the choir, I don't know if you like karate, but whatever your hobbies are, go immerse yourself somewhere in that.
What neighborhood do you live in?
I live on, Marina,
So
He's not gonna tell you. 'Cause
farm neighborhoods, that's what I'd say. Farm neighborhoods.
So postcards are back. Postcards.
I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you. You need to figure out for yourself, but I'm a farm neighborhood to start with.
In my old neighborhood, I sponsored the yard of the month and I put my name and company on the sign. So I always had the yard of the month in my old neighborhood I used to live in back when I did that sort of stuff. I used to do contests with my sphere. It's like, hey, if you see a for sale by owner sign and you call me with the address and the number, or if you refer someone who's a buyer to me, I'm putting you in a drawing every month. I draw out a winner for a gift card or something. So I would actually train my sphere to start prospecting for me. Again, it's way easier to find for sale by owners now, but that's something I did as a new agent. Hey, you send me a for sale by owner if you see, because it saved me from having to drive around and look for them. People would actually call me and say, hey, there's a for sale by owner in my neighborhood. Here's your number and address. Great. Didn't have to drive around and get a gift card every month.
Okay, we've got another question. I know you guys need to get going. David, do you have a question?
Yeah, no, I know Brent said that you make your first hire when you have more leads than you do time. But like, what's that look like? Where are you guys in your business? So I mean, like, when someone does a sign call and it's a 150 house, and you're like, I got some kind of clients I need to spend more time with, so I can't pursue that to the fullest.
You're trying to increase your hourly rate all the time. How much do you make per hour net? So, the first stuff you hand off is the cheap stuff, usually. And on the farming neighborhood, you don't have to live in a neighborhood to farm it either. But that's, just hand them stuff that, it's not gonna yield you as much money per hour, really.
And I guess I'll also say that, I mean, like for my team is different. Like, if it comes in, it doesn't matter if it's $500,000, whatever the price point is, it goes to the person. So, I've got past some trust issues with my team, but at the same time, when I do that random search and see that it's not sold by my team, it gets very upsetting. But I mean, I would say in the beginning, well, for at least for me, there wasn't really no price point of what I'm gonna give out or take. I don't cherry pick on that.
Yeah, well, more so that's like where were you, how did you know you ran out of time? Yeah, more reason to get too high like a admin.
You'll know.
You'll feel it. It's
Yeah.
miserable.
When you
They
stop calling
say,
people.
they say about 60 transactions is where you need to hire, but for me, I was way higher.
Or if you have 20 listings
And-
I've heard along the way.
An
That's a lot to
individual can generally close, you may be really efficient, but about 3 transactions a month is what most individual agents can handle. And after that, you start to get strapped. Quick story, I don't know if y'all, Franklin, you might remember this. There used to be an agent years and years ago in my market that my broker told me about. I can never do this, but every time she used to look at the obituaries every day. And when someone died, she would drop off a bouquet of flowers with a note that if you needed help selling the house, that she would do that for you. I personally couldn't do that, but I mean,
Here's
I
where to
was like,
spend,
oh,
here's where to
that's
spend your
horrible.
money on your
Yeah.
past clients, first and foremost.
yeah.
Past clients,
Word of
those are the
mouth.
best leads you can have. So don't ever forget them. You don't have to spend a lot on them. You can call them. You got their number.
Mhm.
They know who you are. They'll answer the phone. You know, have a little client appreciation party. Maybe until you have like 100 past clients, you don't do that, but that neighborhood farming would be mine too.
Yeah.
And if you got a client that just sold a house, you know they're gonna have a little get together, you know, hopefully you can get invited because you are a good agent and you can kind of sponsor that party. I mean, whether it's food, drinks, or you kind of mingle with all their friends and hopefully your client will be, yeah, here, she's in the right rate about you. And that's kind of pretty good. As well.
That's
Here's
like a
another
whole
thing
other
I used to
class,
do.
client
I used to
appreciation parties.
do the 6-foot subs from Subway. I used to tell them if I would sponsor a party for them so their friends could see their new house. I would just now tell them I would go to somebody and I get a 6-foot sub. And I bring it there and I would get to meet their friends and give them cards and I'd hang out for about 30 minutes and then leave. I used to do a lot of stuff I don't do anymore.
Thinking of it.
I would also
Remember, people buy a house on average like every 6 or 7
Yeah.
years. So if you have like 60 past clients, every year, 10 of them will be listing their house, right? So if you keep up with them, you should be getting 10 listings, at least 5 listings a year, right? If you keep up with them the right way.
And like when my clients were moving in, I would, you know, because I was a lot slower and I had, you know, I guess less money, but I think I had a closing. They're moving in. I would just call Domino's, order pizza, wings, whatever sodas, and serve to the house for the delivery guy. It's on behalf of JT or whatever. But they're moving in, they're tired, and they got food there for the kids, whatever. So, and of course they call, thank you for the pizza. We're so starving, and then little Johnny did it. So it's just a little extra thing that they always think about it.
Any last question from anyone at Zoom? Because they've got to wrap this up.
I want to hear 1 or 2 ahas from you guys. Seriously. that's a
Franklin,
big
I
thing
think you
for
gotta
me,
go,
so
so go.
y'all can head out, but someone share something that you liked. And
So Franklin, I'll do an aha. For me, when Tracy asked the question, how did you find your business when you were a new single agent? And Franklin answered, I went where the people are. And that resonates with me, because you said that's how you just went to where you knew you could build your sphere. So for you, I think you said something like the State House, and you went to but those were the places that you just consciously started going, oh, those are the places I like to go. I like being around those people. If I go there, then that could help me be an easy, natural way to generate leads.
I have made a lot of money at Starbucks.
And then Brandon and JT said similarly the same thing, but I still have the take away from me would be hire a coach, but be sure you hire the right one. Look for a coach or a mentor. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So the combination of the two of you, that was my aha of the day. And then Brandon said a lot of great things. I got the half page, but we don't have that kind of time.
Well, my feelings are about to be hurt.
You're the whole back page.
What
Oh, the
I
back
Brent
page,
said
yeah.
was always be increasing your hourly rate. And you can't do that unless you know your hourly rate, what you're worth. And that kind of ties into the boundaries and everything else. So I like that.
Yeah, it's one thing that Brent knows, he knows his numbers, and I could tell you, I don't know my numbers as well as I should. I know my annual numbers, but I really need to do better, at least know my monthly numbers.
I think one of the biggest stuff I have in front is that all four of you are extremely successful. All four of you do similar things, but none of you run the business exactly the same way.
You gotta do what works for you.
Yeah.
So you can be successful, you just have to find your lane
Right.
and stay in that. Don't try and be a Brent if you're not a high D and, you know.
You'll burn out.
And you gotta,
And it's good to see that example here and share, all of you sharing.
And you gotta learn to take the bumps along the way. You know, I used to hear, I was one of the first people to have a team in the market, and I used to hear people, oh, Brandon's so lucky, things just happen for him. Now, what you don't see is the fact I'm sitting there working 50 or 60 hours a week to make things happen. It's not luck. You put in the time and you'll be successful if you're doing the right things.
Yeah, it's a career, it's not a job. And if you look at it as a job, then you're not in the right career. So,
And now I could quit working and just work out. I could just live off my sphere without ever having to do anything else at this point, just by staying in touch. But, you know, it takes a long time to build up to that point. And
Well, our
these guys
teams are
have
so,
been
we're on
successful.
a flywheel right now. I mean, we could go to the beach for a month and nobody would probably miss us. Honestly, as long as he's got his numbers on his laptop and
What is on
can
my
answer
phone?
questions, yeah.
On my laptop.
Right, just, I mean, I think of that all the time when I'm at the beach, like, this used to suck. And now it's awesome.
God has definitely blessed my business, but I've been there to do the work. So, always do the right thing. Always do the
You
right
don't
thing.
have commission breath, you will
Don't
not
cheat.
last.
Always do right by your clients, always do right by your fellow agents, always do right by your team members, always do the right thing, always.
When people ask me a question, it always goes back to what is in the best interest of the seller, if that's the client. And that'll always anchor you. That'll always bring you back.
anything else? To thank them. Thank you guys so much.
See ya.
Guys.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Oh, I know you.
Jennifer's Parks. Yeah.